the soul.
Yeah, what up, y'all? I like to welcome y'all to the Step Into the Cypher Posse Cut. I like to welcome y'all to the Step Into the Cypher Posse Cut. I like to welcome y'all to the Step Into the Cypher Posse Cut. I like to welcome y'all to the Step Into the Cypher Posse Cut.
Straight from the bomb shelter, operation lockdown, still listen to helter skelter. Still living life, my whole block represent. I'm out to get the loot, the props don't pay the rent. The props don't pay the rent. I'm out to get the loot, the props don't pay the rent.
Whenever I get the feeling to write, I sit down and pick up a pencil. Classmates act oblivious, I get a boast when I write flows. When the same night of the world champ, I'ma set my style's essential. Cause when no is little, then yo, I had the most potential. Rhyming with the passion, keeping the mic in my possession. Felt like an obsession each day. I saw my dad back in the session. Now I'm bringing up on my own quest, relentless, revealing myself out of thin air. Used to be invisible, but now right there kicking anthems. Lay down your weapons, build them skills in this type of 12 bars in less than 60 seconds. Promoting myself under accolades, my shoes a little tight. I'm my words, I reach you before I step into the cycle. Man, we represent my skills hard to find. 6 million tendencies without a paper on your mind. We got plates, flipper records, backpacks, full of rhymes and put the ill composition. Shotgun style.
Race for this new world order, I'm the Vazine feeling. My eyes clean, still I'm cooling with the bleezer burning. A dope style, you don't know that, man, you need to learn it. I'm crime scene building with my rhyme scheme spilling. Working, I'm the smooth microphone is cracker. To the media, I'm probably the perfect type of rapper. But after they get a taste of realness, they be bouncing, Chris sipping. This kid's flipping styles like they ounces. I like to chatter, the data make a click of rappers park and scatter. I hit the green like you caught the gamma. David Pano on the record, Hal Jordan when recording. Rhymes, I just do it like the hot times I'm sporting.
Triple dance, see it air and reappear under your hemisphere where we invent, manifest and represent. Shogun style, leaving your mainframe bent. No pain, no gain, lame game, no pay the rent. The main aim is to achieve things impossible, logical. How the God become all the obstacles, probable. Cause plausible, force unstoppable. Lyrical Buddha backs, I got tips for you that's comparable. All for free, like this now, like the breeze, like the now. About to reach the seat, cause I've been flowing for a while. I'm in around the nation, but for none who can touch God. With such hard, one rush hard, holding the drum card.
Step into the cycle where we represent the skills hard to find. 6 million tendencies with rap. Flavor for your mind, we got plates, flipper records, backpacks, full of rhymes and fit the ill composition. The crew keeps alive in the cycle where we represent the skills hard to find. 6 million tendencies with rap.
How can it all be so simple, man? We connect dots, collect dots like peacekeepers together. We wreck spots, I'm the average kid. I put in more work than metabolisms when it comes to rapping. Ever since I had a vision of scattering knowledge into the four winds. Let the sun of a gun shine when the rain's pouring. So take an umbrella along the ride. Simple one is the funky fella who's singing the song tonight. Alongside the shoguns, some try and provoke them only to find themselves floating face down in the ocean of misery. When we step into the cypher, you and your hype men are getting jittery.
We making moves, but I don't know about my doesn't see. Stepping in the cypher, touching the big steady. Alright, like a bit of it, I'm with the whole shabang, yo, we stand strong. Living in the art of up and down your demo. Ready for me when we buck shot. The lyrical superhero, the people say, jump, so fucking it down with sick. Well, styles, I'm rocking, putting it, tucking it down, boom, boom, bam. You got hit, but I have a potato that I drop a simile. I'll be flipping more. Scripts on the promotion, call me Clifton. Rhyme style, you kinda close it. I'm spitting rhythmical type of sort of impulses with rhymes. From the top of my stepper bell, I'm super black and coaches. My flow is automatic, and I'm a menace, trigger happy. Smashing man, whenever I blab a song, it's that shit. Don't take your time, I cool up on your fucking mind. For the 2 or 1, 2, we're giving them skills hard to find. Break it down.
Oh my God, what? Sauerkraut, get a flavor that's nasty, that's what I'm about. Check it out, sauerkraut, get a flavor that's nasty, that's what I'm about. I say I'm top like a cherry, yo, it gets no harder. Straight from the cemetery with bass like Ron Carter. What's up, cuz? You forgot who I was, left on the beat, nuts, now you're shocked from the buzz. A crazy Hispanic, no need to panic, drop words over beats, clear, no static. Back flips, pulling honeys with the hips. After the show, you say, yo, he really rips shit up. People all get up, treat your girl like a puppet, set my fingers in up.
You know that rapping is what's happening. Keep the bucket happening. Head happening. Rapping is what's happening. Keep the bucket happening. You know that rapping is what's happening. Keep the bucket happening. Head happening. Rapping is what's happening. Keep the bucket happening. Head happening. You know that rapping is what's happening. Keep the bucket happening. Head happening. Rapping is what's happening. Keep the bucket happening. Head happening. You know that. I swing up on a sing like Ming, smoke out and hitting skin's just my type of thing. I swing up on a sing like Ming, smoke out and hitting skin's just my type of thing. Drain out your brains with the fucking double barrel. Cool making moves when I dips like a sparrow. Electrify chicks with my high roll dick. Still be rolling thick on that beef tech shit. My moves, they do the switch flip, Jim Hendrix. Basslines, they got your hook, now you want the fix. Check it, lick them in Bombay, lay them in Bermuda. Fuck it, thought you knew the time to flame the Buddha. Spark my desire, you know what I mean? Forever will I puff, but I hate to think. For the chocolates I stick, get off the dirt. You know that rapping is what's happening. Keep the bucket happening. You know that rapping is what's happening. Keep the bucket happening. Rapping is keep the bucket happening. Rapping is keep the bucket happening. Rapping is keep the bucket happening.
Yo. We good. We good. Tobes, you got to spotlight me? Or no, there we go. We're good. Oh, here we are. We're live. We're live. Sorry for the delay, ladies and gentlemen. And we are here at the BreakEFX podcast, episode 1. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you for taking your time out your day to join us. For some of you that may not know, I'm Epi with BreakEFX, director, part of the breaking community. And we wanted to, host a podcast right now on some serious situations that are going on, some heavy topics. I wanted to bring some of my mentors and some people that I look up to in the Black community and the hip hop community to come touch on some of these topics, and let's have some conversation here. We got a great panels of people who are going to talk. It's going to be amazing. I want to introduce my co-host right next to me, Troy Burrell. Troy, you got anything to say?
What's up, y'all? Thank you guys for showing, bringing your family, friends in. Again, much love to the crew and the family. Ep and I have been dancing and working together for over 20 years, and there's a lot of knowledge that we want to share. So we want to thank y'all for being here with us. Our goal is to educate, to bring knowledge, to also bring things to the forefront that it's gonna be, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, it's not gonna be easy, but that's why we're here. So please enjoy, take notes, and let's get this ball rolling.
Let's get this ball rolling. All right, our first panelist who's gonna come up to speak is Larry Love. Toby, let's get Larry Love in here. There we go. What's up, Larry? We got I think we got voice. There we are. What's up, Larry?
What's going on?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Pretty good. Good to see you, my brother.
It's good to see you too, man. Thank you for joining us.
Anytime.
Do you want to give a short introduction of yourself?
Right.
Just let the people know who you are. Just maybe for some people who don't know, we got some kids, watching, some students and stuff, and yeah, give yourself a proper introduction. Let's, who are you?
Larry Southall, Bronx, New York. I moved to Boulder, 96. I went there to get my graduate degree in dance. I now am faculty on there, have a hip hop certificate growth program, graduate and undergraduate. I'm at Epi back in the day. GWT was one of the first crews. Them and LOF that I met when I moved out here told me that there was jams and there was a scene, and I've been kicking it with them, going to jams ever since. I'm just honored to be here and glad to be a part of T-Roy. I know just as long. We used to dance together, all of us companies traveled together. So this is my dude, and I'm definitely here to represent. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, awesome. Yeah, man. I mean, let's get right into this. T, you want to hit him with the question. Let's go.
Brother Love.
Yeah.
How you living, man?
Good.
Good. Like I said, it's been a long time, man, and we got a lot of years and stuff, man. Being a brother that's from the motherland, man, from from New York, and coming here to Colorado scene, man, what has it meant for you to be able to share your knowledge and living from the motherland and being here in Colorado?
I love it, man. It just ensured to me that hip hop culture will never die. We got B-boys, graph artists, some of the greatest DJs, MCs that I've many a jam talked to for hours and hours. I'm just humbled to be a part of this culture out here, to bring what I brought from the Bronx here, and then actually have a program here and trying to do things and events with people in the community is great. This is a wonderful place. It's a hotbed for hip hop. And I love that. And I love the fact that, I've just met cats on the street, seeing them, G-Dub, LOF, seeing cats be like, yo, what's up? We got a jam here. You should come check it out. Word? And I'm just happy to be a part of it and to see that the culture is here in Colorado.
Outside of, the scene and stuff, as time went on, my brother, what are some of the things what some of the progressions of the scene, and, some of the things that you liked and maybe some of the things you didn't like about the scene at that time? Because, there's, in hip hop, we all know it's higher than peace, helping other people, you know what I mean? And that's the goal all around. But at the same time, the way it's done and how that inner peace is presented to other people. What was your viewpoint on that?
Well, I'm gonna start with the good first. What I liked was, like I said, meeting the crews out here. Epi will tell you, these cats started traveling and then started getting better because all they was power, power, power. And then the dance improved. The other thing I liked is when I first came out here, jams would end and somebody got socked in the face. Every year, see Epi's laughing, and I'm like, to see what it has evolved to now, where cats is rival crews, but they're handshaking and hugging instead of socking and fighting. Because I remember, oh yeah, let's go outside. I'm like, oh man, look at these cats. We do this to get away from it. So the violence has stopped at the jams. I like the love at the jams. Keep that up for you young heads. And don't get mad, come back and win the next one. That's how you do it, all right? We dance not to fight. We write not to fight. We rap not to fight, okay? All right. What I don't like is the capitalism and the commercialism and the appropriation of it. You're gonna teach the style, it's a cultural dance. You have to teach the culture. You teach the people just, oh yeah, be gangster. We do this not to be gangster. Gangsterism is not a lifestyle, it's a death style. It's not fresh, it's a movie, it's a video. And you got people, affluent areas, marketing this, making money over it, but just taping it, taking it and raping the culture, not giving back. Teachers, history, so that people know why they're doing this, not just to go on stage, shake your ass or stick your tongue out. You're out there to convey a message. Why did these people make this art form? Where did it come from? It's not something just on a stage with a proscenium arch. It's something that people live. The cipher is 360 degrees. So that capitalism aspect is whack, it gotta go. Stop stealing the culture and give back to what made it a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yep.
I mean, you heard it from the man himself, man. I mean, the man from the motherland where hip hop was born. And I think that what was just said in I'm only going to speak for the Colorado hip hop community. And I know this is branching out to other communities who's watching this podcast and people who know this in other communities. But I'm speaking directly from the Colorado hip hop dance community. What Larry Love just said is very, very, very important. And I agree with Larry Love on both spectrums of it. But that second part right now is something that we really, really need to look at because of the fact that I'm gonna be honest, I don't see a lot of that. I do not see a lot of that being from the 303, repping the 303. You know, I've gone to other places and everything, but I've always made 303 my home. And over 25 years of doing this, I don't see that. I see it through a handful of people, and that's it. And those handful of people are most of the people I see on the screen. Larry Love, you got anything else on that, my brother?
Yeah, also, you have to acknowledge the pioneers, the people who started it. You have to acknowledge your teachers, you know, like my man, Rennie Harris. I work with him at CU. Some of y'all don't know, check it out, look him up. I probably would have stopped teaching hip hop about 10, 15 years ago because of him. He was like, you know, don't let it, because I got tired of going in studios and having people go, well, we're gonna do some real hip hop, meaning choreo, as that is hip hop. You know what I mean? Like, nah, first you gotta learn the alphabet. Then you learn words. Then you learn phrases. Then you learn sentences. Then you learn paragraphs. Then you tell stories. But everybody just they want the microwave. They don't want to do the oven. Hip hop is the oven. It gotta cook all day and day and day and day. And when you just go in there and you learn a routine, you throw it out there and you're like, yeah, I got it. And then you're people who are actually teaching you how to do this dance, how to respect the dance. You clown them, you diss them. That's whack, that's corny. Well, this is how it started. And you're disrespecting the art form. And you need to learn that you acknowledge your teachers, your predecessors, all right? He who is ignorant of history is condemned to relive it, as we see today. We're reliving it, 65, 92, 2012. Well, it's 2020 and it's the same old story. Don't learn from our history, we're not gonna know enough for our future.
Powerful, man. That is super powerful. Wow.
Brother F, is there something you would like to ask, Brother Love?
He really actually touched on a topic of conversation that I think a lot of us behind closed doors have been talking about. And it's pretty much, I say it like this, is the disrespect of the history and the knowledge that has gone on in a lot of communities and in our community. Like Larry said, everyone always wants to get to that end point and they want to, you know, put that whole sentence together right away instead of learning what every letter means. And, you know, what is that sentence has to have passion behind it and has to have meaning, you know, not just fucking throw out some sentence, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think that has been lost in our community. And that was one thing you know, I wanted to ask, you know, I'm going to ask, you know, you'll probably get me asking everyone this is, how do we, you know, take that back? Where do we, you know, I hope that there's, you know, teachers watching right now, and you're going to go back and watch this because they need to hear this, you know, like in these classes. Cause I remember when I first started, you know, at Motion, there was real history and knowledge being taught, you know, and stuff, you know, and it was from you guys, you know, where do these teachers now start to help out by giving homage and respect to the culture and where it came from, you know, like besides coming in, everyone wants to do the 5, 6, 7, 8, you know, but we know that needs to change, and there needs to be history and knowledge and verbiage taught. Where can dance studio owners, you know, these people who have a lot of power or a lot of following, how do we get them on board with what needs to happen?
If they really gonna talk about it, you gotta be about it. This is what's going on right now. You say, oh yeah, I support you and everything, but what have you done? What are you doing? How are you teaching these young people to understand that this is a culture? Blood, sweat, tears, and years, decades. So, you know, I get it. You may not know, what do I say? How do I do? Educate yourself. Who are the pioneers in your community? So find out who they are. I'm willing to listen. And it's, hey, I own a studio, don't know much about it. Well, here's what you do. Get faculty together that care about it. You don't see people coming in there, you know, if it's the ballet, and not that that's the standard, but people will understand that. You don't just come in and just start moving. And you know what I'm saying? You got to learn the names and all that, do the bar. There's technique. And the technique is lacking. And that's what's lacking in society. We don't have no technique. You know, how we address each other, how we talk to each other, how we understand. You know, I'll never forget when I first started teaching in Boulder, this white lady came up to me and said, when are we gonna do some real hip hop? I took class 4 with just choreography. And initially I got mad, but then I was like, yo, it's a teaching moment. So I pulled back and I said, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know all those years training in the Bronx, learning up the street from Bronx River from my sister, Star Love, shout out to her, was teaching me was wrong in the birthplace. But that's the understanding. We gotta educate. You know, some people don't like to talk. I like, look, my man, brother, Mr. Wiggles, what does he do with his math class? First have people sit down and talk about the history. But you got master class people, come in, here, let's learn this routine. 5, 6, 7, 8, kick it out, thrust and punch and purse your lips. But what are they learning? What are you doing? Remember, it's a culture. You have to teach the culture. If you don't, you're appropriating it. You're raping it. And that's a harsh word to say, but that's what you're doing. You're stealing from the culture. You just want the money, but you don't want to give back. Give back to it. Stop taking it. Otherwise, you're just a parasite.
Ooh. Yes.
I really, really hope the people who are watching right now just heard what that man just said. Because I don't think y'all really heard it. I'm gonna say it again. I don't think y'all heard what that man just said. And if you didn't, I highly suggest you go back when this thing is over and rewind what he just said. Because that's coming from the straight motherland of this culture. Rewind and go back and listen to what that man just said.
I love it. I love it. T, you got one more question for Larry?
Love. Where do we go from here, brother? Obviously everything we've been doing since day one, I'm gonna put it real, has not worked because we back here.
Mm-hmm.
I have my opinion where we want to go, and some might like it, some might not. But I would like to say here, where would you like to go? Because, you know, I'm just one of everybody who's on this panel. So where would you like to see this go from here, brother?
Don't let it repeat itself. You know, everybody gets fired up. and then it dies down and everybody gets back into their complacency. What have you done to reach out, maybe outside of your community, to talk to these studio teachers? Don't meet them with anger, but just say, hey, look, I just want you to know. I want you to make you aware of what you're doing. And if you feel like I feel with what's going on right now, this is part of the problem. Are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? And how do we solve dialogue? You know, get involved in your community and not just jams, but get involved with organizing things and getting an education out there and teaching your neighbors. You know, your neighbor may not look like you, but they're a person just like you. And you'd be surprised what you could find. You know, I grew up predominantly Black and brown neighborhood, hardly any white people. Undergrad, I went to Virginia State, shout out, historically Black college and university. Came out here to get my master's. Boulder was completely white. It was the track team, the football team, the basketball team, and me. It's even more diverse than it was before, but it was hard adjustment. But I learned, to quote Fred Hampton, observation, then participation. We learn from observation, then participate. Observe your new atmosphere. It might be uneasy, but that's how we break these walls down so that we could communicate better beyond dance, beyond art, just as human beings. Civility is an important quality. And I am not perfect by any means, but I will try to communicate with you even if I don't understand you or agree with you. I'm an academia. I get people who look down their nose at me, hip hop, fuck is that? And I have to explain to them, but I can't jump across the table and rip their head off. That's not gonna get my message across. Dialogue, you speak with them, you explain to them what you're doing. Oh, I didn't know that you could get a degree in dance and be endorsed in hip hop. Yeah, that's real. And there's other universities doing it already. I'm trying my best to educate. I teach at CU Boulder, predominantly those kids are affluent. They knew nothing about it. I teach hip hop dance history. We were going over Maymester right when, rest in peace, George Floyd happened. And we're studying about what the people did, the rioting, the violence, the racism, systemic racism. And people, I've gotten responses from them saying, thanking me because they had no idea what was going on. I wouldn't really understood what was happening now. And if we can all do that, don't be a preacher, teacher, just be a friend and spread the information, not the lies. And I'm gonna wrap up on that one.
Nice. Thank you, love. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. Bless you, man.
Oh man, we appreciate it. Everyone in the chats already, they're showing love. I can see right now what's up to Rose and Soul Rain, KO. They're saying what's up to you.
Word, what's up? Yeah, all y'all know, I'm not on social media. You wanna hit me up, email, okay? You have any questions, anything about that? The social media to me thing, I've been doing it for about 1.5 years. People say you miss out, but I have friends. People reach out to me, oh, yo, love, this jam is happening. Or my friends text me what's going on. You know, if you have any questions, things you wanna know about, or maybe even the program, what we're doing up at CU, let me know. Larry.Southall, LARRY.SOUTHALL @colorado.edu. What's up to the hip hop fam? Thank you for watching. Yo, my brothers, this was awesome. Great job. I was honored that you asked me. And
thank you so much.
I appreciate you, my brother.
Nice.
Yeah, y'all give it up for Larry, y'all. Yeah. This is going to be the first of many, man. There's a lot of conversations to be had in order for us to make change, which, you know, it just takes conversations to do this, man. So let's do it. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Anytime.
Yes. Nice. I think Toby will get you out. Cool. Right on. Hey, thanks for everyone joining. Go ahead and leave those comments. I can see what's going on the live. Leave those comments. At the end of we're gonna bring everyone back together, and I'll, you know, if you guys have some comments at home, I'll get some of your questions out to these people. We're gonna take it to someone who's actually in New York right now. We're gonna bring in Summer Dion. Toby, can you get her in here? Yes. And yeah. Toby, turn your mic on, please. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, you're good. What's up, Summer?
Do you hear the music? Washington Heights.
Yeah.
It's very loud in New York right now. I'm sorry, I might have to close my window.
You're good. You're good. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. I'm gonna do the same thing. Can you give us a short little intro of yourself? You know, let's start there.
Sure. My name is Summer Dion Roper. I go by Summer Dion, and I've been dancing for about, officially, I started taking class and such in 2000. And I've been a musician my whole life. I went to the Denver School of the Arts all in middle school and high school. And I went to Colorado State and met a woman by the name of Yolanda Shed. And she basically just kind of took me under her wing and taught me a lot of hip hop. And she graduated and gave me all of her classes at all of her studios. So I kind of got this like crash course in being not just a kid that makes up dance on the street, but now I have to do it for other people. So yeah, I went to Colorado State. I was one of 3 Black music majors. I want to say there was maybe 3 or 4 of us in the dance program and the theater program. So I know about the dwindling numbers, but I love my dance fam from Denver, and I'm honored to be here and talk with the BreakEFX and Epi and Troy, because I have known you guys for over, what, 25 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
That's a long time.
It's a long time. Yes. Yeah. Let's get right into this some conversation here. Troy, got a question?
Summer, being, one of very few females repping here, being in the 303 when you were here present. Would you like to speak on some of your experiences, being, one of the very few females repping in the game during the time that you were here?
Yeah. I will say, because I am a bigger bodied woman, it was a little bit harder to get in the community. It was also kind of strange for me to get into the community, because my community from Denver was just like my friends making up dances in high school and on the street and just hanging out on the east side in Park Hill. And when I went to college and I started dancing, and then I found out that Motion Underground existed, and I went to Boulder, and I was a little baffled that, again, I was like one of, maybe 5 Black people in the studio. So it definitely was one of those things that's like hard to fully grasp, because this is your culture, this is you, this is what you do, this is how you live. And now you're walking into a studio where people are teaching, and they don't know the names of the dances, they don't know where it came from, they don't know the lyrics of the song, but they're teaching it incorrectly. So that was something that like really bothered me. And I found myself being one of those truth seeker speaker teachers, where I would come into class and try to teach the truth of what the movement was and what song it was from and where it came from, and what we do in house parties. And yeah, a lot of my experiences were always me trying to defend myself and the Black community and the culture and what's going on, and not being heard because somebody has taken class longer than I've been there. Or they've been teaching longer than I've been teaching, but I grew up in this, this culture. So that was, I always felt like I was pushed aside. And I know a lot of people felt like I may have been negative or still feel that way, or still feel that, I don't know, that I was kind of hating and not joining the train. I just want things to stay in its true, authentic state, whether that's a person, place, thing. Authenticity is the whole reason we're placed on this earth. So the morphing of things, I think, is what really bothered me, and me speaking out about it just kind of, I feel like, blackballed me sometimes. So that's one of the hard things that I still to this day deal with. So, you know.
Summer, can you go in a little bit more in depth? Because you said a statement that I've said several times about our words fall on deaf ears. I've said that many a times. Is there an example that you can give us that, you know, if you were in a situation, you know, maybe in an event, a studio or something like that, where it was really blatant to you that your words were falling on deaf ears? As much as you were trying to educate, you know, like you said, we're not taught this. We are this. We were born this. You know, this is, you know, people have asked me, you know, T, what do we do next? I'm like, what do you mean, what do we do next? We gave you the formula. It's already been there. It's been a worldwide success. It's hit every culture around the world. So is there a blatant example where you have felt like, yo, I've said this right in front of you and just it went right one ear and out the other that you could share with us?
When you ask that, there's two instances that like came to mind immediately. I remember being in a class, and I think we were dancing to the Humpty Dance, and we were just like freestyling. It was something simple, and the music changed, and it went to Doing the Butt, and I argued with the teacher, and to this day, I can't remember what they changed the lyric to, but they argued with me the whole time about what the lyrics were and what the actual movement of this dance was. So much so that I had to go find the video and show the video, like, this is what they're doing. This is who it's by. This is what they're doing. And I kind of got brushed off, and it was like, oh, well, we're just teaching social dancing right now. And I was like, but if you're going to teach social dancing, you got to make sure you're teaching it correctly. You got to make sure you're teaching the correct dance with the correct words. And if you have somebody that's in your class that knows this, and I wasn't trying to be like, that's not what it is. I kind of like went to the side and was like, hey, you know that this is, you know, doing the butt or whatever. And I mean, it sounds crazy that I'm like, I got upset about the lyrics and the moves, and it seems very small and simple, but like, that song was huge. That song was something that we all danced to. And the fact that like, I knew what it was and they didn't, and they were getting paid to teach it, that really bothered me. I don't think I went back to that person's class ever. But it was just like, how do I don't know how to like talk to people that don't really respect what you're saying, or think that they know more than you because they're teaching a style that, you know, you grew up doing. It just, that was one instance. And another instance, I was in college, and my professor told me that I would not get far with hip hop. I needed to leave that stuff alone, basically. I'm paraphrasing. And fast forward to after I graduate, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, I went back up to Colorado State, and I was talking to her because she was still the dean of dance. And I was telling her like, yo, I've been in LA, I've done this. We should kind of have like, maybe let's pull alumni up to like teach classes and stuff. And I would love to teach the hip hop class. And she was like, oh, you're still on that. You're still on that hip hop stuff. It's not going to get you anywhere. I know that, you know, the commercial dance scene is huge, but it's still not going to get you anywhere. And so we built this whole program because she was willing to try it. And I worked with her and another woman via email. And I want to say about 2 years later or a year later, they did the program without me and had a white dancer that graduated from Colorado State teach the hip hop portion, the hip hop section that I had laid out for everything. So I really wish I could give like advice or say like, this is what we should do to fix it. But I don't think that like I can give those instructions because I've tried to be present and to educate and to be the one that's leading. And I always get pushed aside, or I do everything in the background, and then a person of non-color gets the shine. So I think that's something that has to be dealt with who we're working with in terms of studios and doing the workshops and putting on shows, and just, I mean, even your professors and your teachers, like, we have to just start holding people accountable. And that's something that's really hard because nobody wants to have that conversation. So those are the two that I just thought of when you asked that.
No, that was exactly what we were looking for, Summer. Thank you. And to piggyback, I have some similar situations when I was up at the University of Northern Colorado in the dance program. I was told that this is going around right now, that ballet was the original dance form. And I looked at them like they were crazy. Like, yes. What? You said what to me? And they're like, yeah, ballet is the original dance form. And I just stared at my professor like, you're nuts. You are nuts. And like, well, what do you mean? I was like, there's no way ballet. I'm just going to put it out there. I don't care who's watching. Ballet is not the original dance form, okay? You can go back to tribal cultures and indigenous cultures, okay? It goes back to the drum, the circle. It's a community. It's a rite of passage. It's a rite of passage. Right. So those people who are saying ballet is the original dance form, please, let's have a conversation, because I'll put my 25 years career against yours any day.
That was my professor. She was the dean of the dance program, but she also was my ballet teacher for 4 years. And so she heavily believed in ballet. And I love that. Believe in ballet. It's great. But like, it wasn't the first thing that began on the earth, you know, like that's not what happened first. Somebody played some music and a tribal dance happened, which didn't have anything to do with being turned out or a pointed foot.
I think she wrapped it up right there by saying that. That was the wrap right there, boy.
You are so awesome, Summer. Hey, do you have any words you want to say to the community? Anything you want to, touch base and just get your voice out right now?
I think the one thing that I really want to say to the Denver dance community, we are a very, very strong community, and I still consider myself part of the dance community in Denver. We are a huge dance community. I talk to, the Kevin Mahers or the Marty Kidokus or, Ava or Jaquel Knight or, any of those people. They would be like, where's that kid from? They're from Denver. They're from Denver. I'm from Denver. Denver. Super Dave. Where are you from? Denver. And we're on the map. We're on the scene. People know what you're doing. People see you dancing. And what I want to say and piggyback off of what Larry said is know the people that started the big movements in your community, in the Denver dance community. Know those people, because those people are the people that could have taught some of your favorite dancers. And some of those dancers that are making lots of money off of this dance scene and this dance movement and this dance style hip hop. Some of those people were in my class. Some of those people were in Troy's class. Some of those people were in Larry's and DeAndre's and Epi's class. A lot of these people learned from the people that you guys kind of blackball. So to make the Denver scene better and it not be something that's like old head versus new head, everybody needs to come together and respect the culture, which in turn means unity. Hip hop stands for unity. It came out of being frustrated and trying to find different ways to express. And human connection is important. So find those people that started the stuff, started the movement, started the craze, and those fantastic dancers that you see. Some of those people were in these people's classes that you don't take class from because you want to do the choreography. And I can tell you something, it's a great thing to be able to do choreography and to catch on as a dancer, as a human, because it teaches memory, it teaches muscles, it teaches everything in your being. But I want people to understand that like the Denver dance scene needs to be more inclusive in terms of the older people that kind of paved the way for this success that's happening. You can't forget the people at the bottom. You have to, I'm not saying that anybody's at the bottom, but you can't forget the people that taught you down here. You didn't get here from this, not just from these people, you got here from everybody that you took from. So just be more inclusive in your thinking about what's happening in the community and who started that, and make sure that you're just staying knowledgeable about where things are coming from and giving props to those people, and educate yourself on different styles. And I don't know, just we need to be more inclusive and to love each other, because that's what hip hop is. It's nothing more than getting together and having fun, basically. Forgetting what happened outside and getting with your peeps and working out and sharing in the love and sharing the love on the floor and for the music and for the movement.
Yes.
I think I just rambled a lot. So.
No, you're good. No, it's all great information. It's all stuff that people need to hear. Love it. Troy, any final words with Summer?
I agree with Summer. Put this out there. There's a lot of people who have learned, and yes, y'all are making money. But know this, just like money's being made, when you spend that money, you get a receipt. And the people you learn from, we got receipts on y'all, dog. I'll say that again. The ones who are making money from the cats you learned from Colorado, we have receipts on y'all. And I just get with my accountant. So I'll
give my accountant. I think that was great stuff for everyone to hear. You know, like it just such. It was actually one of our topics of conversation the other night of, you know, how big the dance scene is here, and people, some of us just really don't realize it. And the people that have came from here even back in the day, you know, like they were in movies and doing things. They learned from the people that are still right here in your community. So it's here for people to learn. You just got to access it.
Right.
Yeah. Great work.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes, go, please.
So I was on Instagram because that's where I spend my time. If you ever want to get in contact with me, please don't send me a Facebook message because I don't pay attention. But a lot of dancers, because I've been in 3 dance communities now. Colorado dance community. I lived in LA and worked as a professional dancer out there, and I've been in that community, which is intense. And now I'm in this New York dance community, which is very different. And there was a post made about the names of classes and what we're calling classes. And this has always been a thing for me. But I know that a lot of studios and dancers have decided that they're going to remove the word urban from the title of their dance classes or whatever, anything that has to do with hip hop culture. And I have said this from day one. I did not like the word urban movement or urban dance or urban blah, I don't know, urban. Because to me, if you are a person that's not Black or not a person of color, and you are teaching quote unquote hip hop class, and you have named it urban movement or urban contemporary or something like that, I don't agree with that, because it's I feel like it's a blatant appropriation statement. Like, I really want to be a part of the culture, but I really want to make money off of this, and I'm a kid from the suburbs, so I'm going to call it urban. And I found it very disrespectful. And I've posted that a few times today on my Instagram, because this is hip hop. No matter how you change it, no matter what word you put in front of it or what you name your class, this is hip hop. And it was created by Black and brown people in the ghettos, urban areas, but you cannot call it urban movement or urban dance, because you can't. I'm not even going to explain that. It's disrespectful. So I would love it if we could, in Colorado, get hip to that and remove that from any of the dance classes or how we describe anything. Yeah.
Thank you. That's powerful. That's powerful right there. And that, whew. Yes, super powerful. Thank you. Yes, we needed to hear that. Everyone needs to hear that. And please listen to what she just said, because those are words that encourage how we could make change. Let's make this change, y'all. We got to do it. Thank you, Summer, for joining us. We're going to bring you back on here in a minute. We got 2 minutes on the list. We're going to put you in the weight room. Show some love for Summer, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Summer.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I love y'all.
Summer. Oh, wait, never mind. You got her off. I'll get her back on. We need to get her information out to everyone. Toby, let's bring on DeAndre. And thank y'all for joining us again. For everyone on YouTube, I see you guys in the comments out there showing love. TCDC, Tara, thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. Everyone out there, leave those comments. We're watching right now. And let's go. Let's keep this going. DeAndre, welcome.
Hey,
Yes.
can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, man.
Right on. I have to switch up some stuff, so I got my earbuds in too. So
nice. Hey, let's start off again like I'm doing with everyone else. Please give us an introduction to who you are, a little bit of your background, just so some new viewers and some people who may not, there's some students out there watching. Let's introduce them to you.
So my name's DeAndre Carroll. I've been dancing in the Colorado dance community, primarily with Black forms of dance. So that would include West African, that would include dance styles of Catherine Dunham and Haitian and hip hop for 27 years. Like Larry and Summer, I met like a lot of these cats when they were a lot younger. I literally met Troy at the club. I met Epi back when you guys were like with GWT, Ray when he was like a teenager. You know, I met Fiends through their mentor Quickstep, who's been a mentor of mine. You know, I've really tried to stay in it. I was one of those people that started dancing late, so I didn't really start like committing myself to dance in my 20s when I got exposed to a West African dance group that was run by a woman named Letitia Williams. And then another young man, Enoch Boyd, brought me into dance for his MFA performance. And then a bunch of other stuff happened that I won't go into here that landed me started to teach those dances. You know, I grew up in the culture and I grew up surrounded by people who were in hip hop and more than just the dance. You know, one of my cousins was a DJ. Another one of my cousins was actually a dancer who was on the scene and was in videos and was dancing for a lot of underground artists. My cousin Conrad Hilton was a dancer for Lady of Rage. He also works for Jamie Foxx. So he's been in the scene. He's a lyricist, dancer, stuff like that. He and his sister were really kind of my first introduction to house dance, which is one of the things that I teach now. You know, but I've been on the scene for a long time. So like it's been cool to kind of like grow with people and mature with people. I met Summer actually through one of her friends and teachers, Yolanda Shed, who I met at CSU. Because I was actually setting a piece of choreography on her from traditional African-American dances like jazz and blues and juke joint dances and all kinds of other stuff like that. So everybody that's on this panel, we have like a really kind of intricate, you know, connection, probably more than some of the folks even know that are putting some of this stuff together. So.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Troy, let's go. Hit him.
Brother DeAndre, you know, recently you and I have had some combos and everything, and then, you know, we've had combos with other people within the scene. And, you know, I'm kind of just gonna get to the point, Brother D, you know, in some of those combos, man, you heard my frustration. You heard, you know, we talked about how to kind of express ourselves when we have our frustration. And like in one of our conversations, man, you had to calm me down, brother, you know, like, because you felt the anger. And I guess the question I want to ask you, man, is when people ask, you know, they get that whole syndrome is like, you know, not really a question, but like that feeling of the angry black man, like why you got to be an angry black man, you know what I mean? And it's a very kind of stereotypical thing, but it's a real thing at the same time. And you experienced that the other day. Can you tap into a little bit about it and what your feelings is on that perception that people have society of the angry black man?
Yeah, first off, I want to say that there are a lot of reasons to be angry. You know, when we were talking the other day, and just like me calming you down was not necessarily like an invalidation of your anger, because the things that you voiced are the things that I feel too. So I think that's really kind of well founded, that anger is there. I a lot of times step back from what's going on and the media portrayals of the things that are going on, because I can't be in a perpetual state of anger if I want to get things done. And I know that those things will affect me deeply, to the point where they affect my sleep, to the point where they affect how I relate to people. So while I think like anger is valid, and I think expressions of anger are going to be justified, I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to channel my anger. But that's me. That's the approach that I take, and that's not the approach that I'm saying everybody else has to take. You know, because in some circles, people feel like that when you do that, then like your expression of anger is not authentic, and I don't agree with that. But then that you're basically trying to curtail your anger for the benefit of other people, you know, who are in a place where they're feeling fragile around the things that you're angry about. You know, my thing is that I constantly want to work on solutions, but that anger is going to come out. My entire life has really been expressing my anger different ways. And one of the things at the end of the day, I realized that my goal is to figure out how to work on a path forward with this. And if I if I just kind of let my anger roll out, my anger doesn't get to get used as a resource. People will listen to you when you're angry, but not if you let that anger be there all the time, not if you're angry all the time. I know that people listen to me when I'm angry because the face that I show a lot is not that anger. You know, they're just kind of like, oh, you know, damn, DeAndre's there. So maybe we need to kind of listen. I just kind of know from growing up that like anger becomes a squandered resource. You let it out all the time. People start learning how to tune out your anger. And then they think that you're basically just going to be like angry about everything and that the stuff that you're angry about is not valid. You know, so like Troy, your anger is valid and it's justified. I have to choose another way because people interact with me a different way. You know, I know that you, Troy, you're like a very passionate person. And I know that like you bring that into everything that you do. And it's just like, it's one of those things too, that like when you get angry, people pay attention, you know. But you're such a giving person too, that I think sometimes people feel like, well, what could Troy possibly be angry about? And so then when you're angry, they're kind of surprised about it, you know.
Good point. On that, continue on that topic, D, you know where the frustration and anger came from, you know, and Larry touched on it, and then Summer went a little bit deeper on it, and I'm glad Summer used the word to talk about urban. And I put it out there. We got receipts, bro.
Yeah.
We got receipts, man, you know, and I'm going to put it out there. There's a lot of receipts I feel that need to be pulled.
Yeah.
And that's where my anger is coming from. Because there's a lot of people in the Denver dance scene that don't know where that is. And where my anger is coming from in my 25 plus years of being around, especially here in Colorado, again, feeling like words are falling on deaf ears.
Yeah.
And I remember I talked to you, I have that, you know, the Malcolm and Martin on my shoulder right now. And, you know, both of them are, you know, very valid where, you know, you hear Martin saying nonviolent, and then you're hearing Malcolm saying by any means necessary. You know what I mean? So within this appropriation, and there's receipts that need to be pulled. They're going to get pulled. I'm going to tell you that right now. These receipts are going to get pulled. So where's this? And when people say you need to curb that anger, what do you think about that?
Don't curb it. Don't
doing the right thing.
Don't curb it. Use your anger.
D's sound went off. Hold on. Toby,
we lost D's mic. Can you check?
There we go.
Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, cool.
Proceed,
All right.
please.
Yeah. So what I was saying is like, don't use that anger because that anger is power. You know, going back to the question that you asked, it's just like, you know, never ever squash your anger. Me, I always think about the best way to use my anger. So going back to like the question that you had, you know, we're bringing up the stuff that like Summer said about like urban versus hip hop. You know, I completely agree. Urban has just been one of kind of like the biggest jokes and euphemisms, you know, that's ever been employed when you're talking about, you know, Black and brown people, the things that we create, this dance, this culture, all kinds of other stuff like this. And so people need to start answering those like difficult questions. Just like, why are you calling it urban? You know, and don't tell me because everybody else calls it urban. Why are you calling it urban? If I sit here and I tell you where hip hop and house and all these other things come from, why are you calling it urban? You know, and a lot of times people will answer that question, you know, by saying, you know, it's just like, we're doing that because, well, that's the industry and that's the money, like, and we're making money and all kinds of stuff like that, which is true. All right. So like rewind it a little bit. I started teaching at a studio called Dance West, which was back in Boulder. And I started teaching at Dance West right around 1995. And so I was teaching West African dance there, which was actually one of their biggest money makers because the studio was always packed with people coming to take West African. I started teaching hip hop there because hip hop had another really huge following at the studio. But I would watch the hip hop classes, and the person teaching hip hop at the time, which was the studio owner, was really teaching something that was like akin to aerobics. And I was sitting there just like, are you kidding me? Are you serious? This is what people are actually calling hip hop. And it's funny because when I would be around the studio and I would try to have those conversations about, well, this isn't hip hop, people would always try to justify it. They try to justify it because it was the way that it was taught in a class they took in another state, or, you know, like another city or somewhere else by some other big name and stuff like that. It's just like, you know what? I may not be like a dyed in the wool dancer. Like, I didn't grow up being out front with dance, but I know growing up in the community and the culture that this is not hip hop. You know, so when I actually got a chance to start teaching, you know, that made me angry. That made me irritated. So I got a chance to actually start teaching hip hop at Dance West because there was a dance teacher there named Paula Kitty, now Paula Kaufman, and she's a teacher at Broomfield Heights Middle School. We still have a good relationship, you know, just as friends and around dance and all kinds of stuff like that. But she understood my frustration, and she was leaving to go back to graduate school and asked me if I could take over her class teaching it at Dance West, because she really wanted somebody who understood the essence of where hip hop came from. And so from day one, when I started teaching that class, that anger that I felt was I channeled it into trying to structure my class around a discussion on what hip hop was. And so I never taught a dance in that class that I could not name, that I could not adequately demonstrate, and that I could not do to the appropriate music. You know, that also made me realize too how much I actually needed to learn, how much I didn't know. Because at the time, growing up in Denver, you could be isolated. The stuff that you were learning was kind of authentic, but you found out there was a much bigger culture around hip hop nationwide. And from that point on, I actually started finding out there was a much bigger culture in Colorado that I knew, because working at Dance West, jumping forward 2 years to like 1997, is when Ken Jimenez was brought out here to actually teach at Dance West. He was brought out for a hip hop weekend workshop, and then was eventually brought out to replace the owner's class teaching hip hop while the owner was off doing some other things with his day job. You know, but that really kind of snowballed into me meeting Ray and Epp and all the cats that were part of GWT at the time, you know, because Kenny actually started building a relationship with those cats. But, you know, being long-winded as I can be, going back to the original question about like dealing with that anger, is that I use that anger to actually channel it into things that help move us forward. The anger is still there. I don't justify my anger at anybody. If I'm angry, and I have reasons for being angry. But, you know, I know that we have a long way to go. And so I'm going to use that anger to help push that conversation forward and to help push those changes forward. Another thing that really kind of struck me in the conversations I've heard so far with what Larry and what Summer are saying made me think about how a lot of this is a much bigger problem than what we teach, the information that we give, and people asking us questions. Because right now, the way that hip hop has been co-opted is constantly reinforced in the industry. So you have like these traveling festivals like Monsters of Hip Hop, you know, just to name one, and all these other things that come around. And the thing is they're not dedicated to teaching the culture and the history, or at least they weren't when I started. I don't know, things may have changed. That's not my scene, really, you know. But you have these teachers who actually are these studios that start hip hop and house classes at their studios because they're money makers, and it allows them to plug into that festival circuit, you know, where you can go and do competitions and all kinds of stuff like that. And they call it hip hop, but they don't ever talk about the culture. And so then in turn, the studio owners don't feel like they really ever have to talk about the culture, that they make their money from having somebody that teaches movement that's hot and it looks like what people are actually doing in dance videos, not realizing there's more of a culture there. And there's still that hypocrisy around there, like, you know, like Summer mentioned, around like they'll hold ballet in high esteem, but they'll make money out the back end from hip hop and house and won't really give it the same respect. And the thing is like, as long as they're not challenged on their bottom line, they don't really feel like they have to do it. You know, it's just like it becomes this people would ask this questions like, well, you can't fault them for making money. That's the American way. You know what? Based on the stuff that we've actually seen with George Floyd and with Breonna Taylor, and with Ahmaud Arbery and stuff like that, there's a lot of stuff that's the American way that needs to be fixed. So you can't just fall back on this argument that it's the American way. Don't plug into these dysfunctional models of how America is supposed to function to justify your own lackadaisical and in some cases corrupt behavior. So there's a bigger, deeper conversation that needs to happen around that stuff. There's a lot of stuff that happens even still now outside of dance studios that supports this mentality, this broken mentality that we have around this. So it's like I go to a lot of jams and I'd like deal with students who come to classes and all kinds of stuff like that, who, people that studied house from me, people that studied hip hop from me, and then they'll go out and they'll do some other stuff and they get kind of big in their britches because they fall in love with some other dancers, some other place. And then you have this cult of personality that actually develops. They fall in love with these people who are kind of like the hot YouTube dancers, that don't really teach them the history. They just like have some juice because they're in movies or in videos, or they'll go do battles and stuff like that. And they get the name splashed all over social media and stuff. But at the end of the day, they're not teaching the lessons. The people that are looking up to them are not learning the lessons. We really have to have a better foundation of teaching the lessons and the background in the culture. We don't do that now, and it's been an evolutionary process in our community, because I know a lot of dancers that I met when they were much younger who were never interested in this stuff. I've had dancers straight up tell me, it's just like, well, I'm not really interested in this aspect of it, only to go out in the world and see how much the culture that they love is disrespected and how that trickles down to them being disrespected as a professional, as a valuable professional. It's just like, yo, I need to rethink this, and then they'll come back to me or come back to Larry, they'll come back to Jared, they'll come back to, Summer and other people and stuff like that. It's like, yo, once upon a time you told me this thing and I didn't listen, and I went out and I saw it, and it's just kind of like, you were right, and I need to learn more about that. It's like I'm not trying to sit here and like give the I told you so, but we need to really push this emphasis to more of the people that we're training about the culture and about the history, so that when they're in classes teaching, they're not teaching outside of their asses. I mean, they don't have to be nerdy like me. Everybody that knows me knows that I'm a big old nerd. It's like, and I challenge people to be as nerdy as I get, in the situation, stuff like that. But you don't have to be that. But whenever you're teaching somebody some aspect of the culture, always tie it to the lesson, because I guarantee you, if you don't, they'll make up their own story behind it. They'll take they'll take the movement, run off and be in a movie somewhere and stuff like that, and they won't know. And then they'll have to make up their own story. And then when they're the person that's looked up to, they end up misrepresenting the culture because they didn't know the story in the first place. Part of that is our fault, but part of that is what's reinforced in the industry.
Ooh, wow, man. Very powerful conversation right there. Man, and we could probably go on for days around that and go down that rabbit hole. Wow, dude, you just really gave me chills on everything you just said. And the comments, they're going off right now. Beyond correct, 100% truth. You're speaking it and they're listening, and thank you. Do you have some final thoughts? Anything that you want us to talk about right now, that you want to get your word out to everyone?
Let me just kind of one sort of last thing, a couple of last things around this.
Yeah.
Number one, I believe in the power and the promise of hip hop and house, and all these cultures that are part of Black dance, and specifically hip hop, which is really kind of it's a co-creation. It's a Black and Latino co-creation. There's just like all the negative things that we see in the culture that I've just talked about are a reflection of the problems that we have in America. All the good things that I see in the culture are they definitely represent the potential of a good American model about like how we relate to each other. If you're out there and you're not Black or brown and you're a part of the culture, Nobody is saying that you're not supposed to be a part of the culture. And nobody is saying that you're supposed to take a back seat to the culture. Know where you are, understand it, respect it, learn about it. It's the difference between going to a house party and trying to contribute to the house versus going to a house party and trying to remodel the house. Don't go and try to remodel the house. Participate, bring who you are, bring your substance to it. You elevate the game that way, you know. I think, you know, beyond that, we need to start doing our work to learn about the culture more, because it's something powerful. And all the problems that we're seeing in hip hop, you know, like I said, like the good things in hip hop are a model for how we can make America better. We have to clean our own house, because, you know, it's just like most Def was saying, it's like people ask about like hip hop, like it's the giant living off in the hills and stuff like that. Whatever's going on with the people is what's going on with hip hop. You know, but conversely, the things that we do in hip hop can influence the world, because all the eyes are on us. It is a multi-billion-dollar worldwide industry with dance, with music, with clothing, you know, and it goes beyond that, because there's this graph, there's just like all that stuff that's a part of it. And there are so many people that have modeled off of what we've created here, you know. So I think that's really all I have to say about it. I'll say whatever else, you know, I need to say, like, we all come back together. I took notes. Like when I was listening to Larry and Summer speak, I was just like, yep, I need to mention this. I need to mention that. So I got like Post-its right here on my laptop, just to make sure that I didn't forget anything. But also Troy threw some questions at me, which were some other things I needed to really kind of think about how I voiced them out. So, all right, cool. So that's it for what I have to say for right now.
Awesome. Yeah, we're gonna bring you back, everyone back in again for a group discussion. Thank you, DeAndre, for joining us. You spoke a lot of truth, a lot of harsh truth, and I appreciate you for doing that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll bring you right back in. Up next, we got Jared. Thanks again for everyone joining while we get him on there. Just want to say that this is our first podcast, and we're going to use our platform to do exactly what people are saying, learning their history. I'm going to pull in originators from crews throughout these next few months to come and talk about their history and, you know, where they come from, where their crew started. So this is just the first of many, y'all. We're going to have the same conversation again here soon too. But right now we have Jared in the house, y'all. Thank you, Jared, for being a part of it.
Peace, y'all. First, giving honor to the ancestors, the Most High, God. You know, that's why we're all here. You know what I mean? And to my elders and my mentors, being DeAndre. I'll try to give a brief summary of, man, y'all just blew my mind though, for one. I just had to say that. Everybody has been on, and DeAndre, tying all that together. This is, thank you guys, BreakEFX, for doing this. You know, for yourselves and for the community, everything like that. Thank y'all so much. That was pretty mind-boggling. You know, I like the way everybody tied stuff together, and I was over here taking notes too. Now it looks like chicken scratch because there was so much going on and everything. But I've been dancing out in Colorado actually since 1988. I was on the bad team. And I know that back in the day with SOS, those jams and stuff like that, my journey in dance actually started through the Black church in America. My father was the pastor of one of the biggest Black churches in Colorado back in the 80s, you know, about 1,200 member congregation. He was really big in the civil rights movement. You go to my house, there's pictures of him and Martin Luther King all over the wall. The statue that's in City Park there, that was given to us, the model of it, you know, in honor of the relationship that he had with Dr. King. So my approach to dance and Black history started in the church. The first thing I did was I was on a gospel step team. I did gospel rap. Even back in the day out here, we had a gospel radio station called KDKO. It was on the AM station.
Yeah.
And back in the day, I think it was like 93, we had a song on the radio. I had a gospel rap group called Positive Image, and we had a song on the radio called Stop the Gangs, Guns, and Violence, Bring the Peace. We had, you know, so my movement in hip hop again started more in church, and it comes from a spiritual perspective and whatnot. So as I was listening to everyone, I want to say the positives of hip hop and also the dangers of the misconceptions of hip hop, you know, to me, because when you don't control the narrative, like we were saying, if you don't control the narrative, there's so many dangers in that. Because Tekashi 6ix9ine says hip hop. He the king of New York. He's all hip hop. You know what I'm saying? But Dead Prez is hip hop. That's some of the hip hop I grew up on. But before I even got into Dead Prez as a little kid, I was on Will Smith. You know what I'm saying? And Will Smith was hip hop. So all of those different versions of hip hop go back to different origin stories, so to speak, you know, how they came about and how now who controls the narrative of hip hop. You have like the Baby, who was performing and got the biggest song on the radio and things like that. And one of my main concerns is like, think about the content. And when you look at the studio like Millennium and LA and all that stuff and all these studios, and I kind of, I think about the songs that they're playing, you know, and you have like 4-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, you know, talking about putting the stick in the box and bopping it and all that stuff, right? And so we co-sign for it. When we don't stop and we don't check the integrity of like what we're letting the babies listen to, how we're letting them grow up, then we're kind of co-signing for it to be okay in a sense, you know, because we don't control it. We don't control like the radio stations, who puts the records out and those kind of things. So I'm jumping all over the place just to say like KRS-One, the first time I heard that, you know, higher inner peace, helping other people, he also had another acronym that I don't use very much, but I really like it. And it's called Wholly Integrated People Having Omnipresent Power. What's the spiritual side of hip hop? What's the power in the spirit of hip hop? You know what I'm saying? Because it came from, you know, the ancestral ways, like a lot of blues and jazz and all those things. And what is it? Soul came from the church. Came from gospel singers in the church, you know what I'm saying? Aretha Franklin, all those things. Like these were young people who were in Black church culture in the, you know, early 40s, 50s, 60s that then evolved into the culture. So again, I'm just saying a lot across the board to say that when you don't control the narrative and we're misperceiving concepts and history and, you know, and points, and we're looking for validation to be like, well, this is my point in hip hop. This is how I feel about hip hop. Like, sure, it's how you feel, but at the end of the day, you know, what are the facts? Where did it come from? You know, what was going on in New York at the time? You know, if you've seen the documentary Rubble Kings, you know, there was bankruptcy going on, there was homelessness going on, there was crack going, you know, and where were those, who and what were most of the communities that were impacted by that, right? And still then, the spirit of the people coming out into the streets, being fresh, being dope, reorganizing, taking street gangs and turning them into, you know, community organizations from the Black Spades to the Zulu Nation. You know what I mean? Like all of those people who are doing movements and moving homeless people back into the streets, we have to realize like there is a power in hip hop culture and also a danger in the branding, because I think that was one of the notes, like the way you brand it when you call something urban or however, you know, we don't control the brand. Just like in the labels that we see when we're raised in America and the education we get, we all fall under a certain type of brand, you know, whether it's the clothes you wear. Like we used to clown each other. Oh, look at your, you know, your K-Swiss and you know, whatever, you know, how we get in the community. And I think that's another thing to add is like, when we look at a lot of the comedies that we've done, and that we watch from Friday to, you know, just all the stereotypical, say, Black exploitation movies and films that we watch, part of it was a way of telling our story. But then another danger to that is like when we laughed at it, we laughed at the pain. And then other people, like through sitcoms and other shows, they learned their Black comedy through like Family Matters and full, you know, or whatever, or the Cosby Show and things like that. And the danger with that is that you begin to think that, oh, this is how Black people act in society, or this is how brown people act in society, and better yet, this is how white people act in society. And we label ourselves to these brands. So even that has trickled over into hip hop. You know, how do we label ourselves in hip hop? What's cool? And we got to be original when all of us are repeating a culture. Like we wasn't in New York, or some of us, excuse me, weren't in New York at the time when this first went down at Ground Zero, dealing with gangs, drugs, the crack epidemic, you know, the politics that were enforced on the people at that time versus the politics that are enforced on us now. So I think everything that everyone said across the board was like, you know, it was amazing. It was great because there's so many perspectives. and so many layers. So I would just say, educate yourself as best you can and know that we don't have all the answers. But sorry for my long-winded intro.
No, I love it, dude. Like, wow, that you just, man, you guys are just all blowing my mind right now. I mean, exactly, you hit it on the head. We got to regulate and check these things that are going on around us.
Right.
Can't let it happen.
Right.
Troy, got a question?
Brother Jared,
Right.
you and I have a very unique connection. We touched on it the other night in our conversation, and I'm gonna kind of make this a two-part.
Okay.
We talked about conversation. One of the conversations you and I talked about is that you and I never had this inkling to battle each other, or prove ourselves to each other. We've always had this common ground of sitting down and working and speaking with each other, and we shared that bond, especially doing that, the character role that we play, and show toys. But with that being said, the question I want to ask my brother is, when they talk about black on black crime, or how hip hop uses to cross the barrier of, violence and stuff, and how, the crime against your other man was changed through hip hop, and to a point where you and I, our skills are equal and different at the same time, and respect each other's skills, but we never wanted to try to challenge each other that. Why do you think that is? And the second part of that question is, where was that loss where I look across from another black man, I want to take him out just because he's black, instead of trying to hold his hand and help him get to his next place?
Right. That's a really good question. And more so importantly is the answer to that question, because like for me personally, I understand the battle, the nature of the battle. And when you go into the battle, the levels it can take you to. Coming from where I came from in church, I was never necessarily a battle type person. I was a cipher cat. I was going to light up the cipher though. Like if we vibing together, it was tribal to me in that way, that I want to bring out the best in me, and the best in me should bring out the best in you. It's funny. Like when I first met DeAndre, when he went to college with my brother, we were all at the park one night and we were sparring martial arts. You know what I'm saying? We were working with each other. We weren't fighting against each other, And I think that when you think about how iron sharpens iron, I never had the inclination to be like, yo, Troy, like, show me what you got. When I can see who you are, you don't have to show me what you got, but we inspire each other. You know what I'm saying? I had a good lesson with the brother, Gary Kendall, in that same way. Gary brought out the best of me in a lot of ways, and at times he would do it in challenges. Like we're backstage warming up for a show. He would challenge me like, yo, can you top that? But it was never from the perspective of I'm trying to be better than, or my ego is better than you. I'm like, I want to see how high we can push ourselves. That's why I understand the nature of the battle, because I think when you're in a battle, you're pushing each other to be on point, to be a warrior. So I agree with them. But where I think the hatred comes into play, which is very hard for people to see, is that you have to remember that coming from slavery and things like that, when they used to pitch black folks towards black folks, and forgive me for saying like, whether the Willie Lynch letter was real or not, or in theory and perspective, to turn for so long, self-hate has been perpetuated amongst us for so long. And I think that it's about going back to love, because I just had that love in my heart. As a kid, I went to school, and out of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, 600-700 people, there was like 4 black kids in the school. You know what I mean? So I walked in an environment where even though I saw people for people, the culture around me would remind me of the color code. You know what I'm saying? And so that constant reminder in our culture, in our community, a lot of times people look and they just hate themselves because of what's been embedded into us for so long, broken families, broken homes, some men in slave times, it was the bigger man who survived that was going to be the slave. So they would put each other where you think boxing comes from. You see what I'm saying? Like Tyson and Holyfield, we're actually, again, reliving the past, as we've said before. It's just disguised, and it's sold back to us in a new way. So to come around and answer your question, I think that self-hate is genetic almost. It comes from so far deep inside us. We have to learn how to heal that and go back around and be like, yo, what up, God? What up, King? That's what hip hop was all about. That where the terminology blood came from, a lot of times, because families were separated in the streets, they would be like, yo, blood, what up, kin? Because we didn't know who we were. Or the word Crip, you know, we're turning into a gang thing, but it was community restoration in progress. Those kind of things. Like, we got to learn our history and realize that this is a part of relearning what we've been programmed by a colonized mind to think about ourselves and to think about our brands and relearn who we are as kings and queens and gods and spiritual beings from beyond this world. You know what I'm saying? That's just my take on it.
So let me jump right onto that, brother, because that was so powerful, and I want to continue that power, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you speak that truth from the spiritual aspect of the culture and who you are from your family background as a Black man.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to kind of tie in with the other panelists were saying,
mm-hmm.
talk about this urban and appropriation, and we look at our scene right now. I'm just gonna put it out there. We got people owning, I'm gonna say it, urban studios that are not Black.
Yeah, yeah.
And these are the particular studios that are telling us, hey, you can only act this way. We're only gonna pay you this much. But they want us to come into their spots and do the workshops and teach the history.
Yeah. Oh man. I hear you, and I think that we, or as an individual, you know, I think we just have to, because sometimes we can't be lead everybody because we see things from different perspectives. But I think as an individual, if you can take accountability for who you participate with and who you choose to do business with, if you check, you know, the integrity and how you are with yourself, and make sure that the relationship is based on that. Like, yo, we're gonna share this, or we have no even business dealing with each other. There's no point for me to just hold that platform for it to be exploited. So I think part of the responsibility falls on us to be like, either this is the program that's going to be here so the kids can really learn and you yourself are going to understand that, or we just don't do business. It's kind of like as simple as that to me. And then to also hold those communities accountable, you know, to make them say there's a difference between urban pop culture over here and and hip hop culture, what we define as hip hop culture for ourselves, and just really, you know, campaign for it. Because I'll say a danger too, and, you know, forgive me for speaking on this, but it's like the same thing. If you do some research into the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, it can easily be hijacked because so many people's other agendas can be brought into something that's becomes a hashtag or a slogan. And I think you have to be careful with that. Like Dee was saying, really educate yourself. And if you're going to repost information or anything, really be careful at this time. I mean, the last 4 years has been nothing but fake news, propaganda, this, that, don't believe this. And then we're pumped with this fear mongering. And when fear takes over, it literally has an alchemical effect on the body, and you're not able to, you know, receive information. You can't process correctly. And we keep living in the dysfunction of fear, false evidence appearing real. So let's face everything and respond. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. Speak
that on that. I've used that acronym several times with people. Yeah. False evidence appearing real.
Mm-hmm. So face everything and respond. Face your fears. Like Dee was saying, let fear be your fuel and not your brake. You know, don't be afraid and stop because of your fear. Let it be your fuel. Let it fuel you. Because that's the whole point. When we're afraid to go in the circle, what do we have to do? We got to overcome our fear and just let the expression, let the spirit of the dance come out. When people are like, no, I don't want to go in, we got to face our fears. That's what so many ways I think in hip hop we're able to grow, because that circle kind of represents us being able to present ourselves, express ourselves, and, you know, and be accepted by the community around us. That's so symbolic of, you know, in so many ways. But I think, again, what Summer was saying, especially out here, man, like I said, I've danced out here since '88. I was on stomp teams. I was 11 years old, you know, dancing. I was involved with the communities at the time, with the Reverend Leon Kelly, who was gang violence. You know, I've been in the whole spiritual, political hip hop movement since day one out here. But I tell you what, it's rare that I've probably come to, you know, where I've been invited to teach. I've been on Dee's platform, thank you, you know what I'm saying, and the other places, which I don't necessarily mind, because I feel like I'm a little bit of a diamond in the rough. You won't get me unless you know me and pull me aside to have a conversation with me. You probably won't get this information that I'm spitting out. So that's why I want to say thanks again, because I really have been bottled up inside and wanting to say something to communities and wanting to say, come on, y'all, we can do this, man, because Like if we're gonna reach beyond the frontier, even like Bambaataa was saying, this is a galactic culture. It's not even from this. It's like otherworldly, so to speak, that it came here in the mind, you know, of these kids expressing, and for it to be a freaking global phenomenon. But if we can't get past race, then how can we elevate as a species on the planet, as a human race, not a race divided into subcultures of this and that? We understand that, but as a species on the planet, we're not going to be able to evolve to higher levels until we realize we are one species of like a human race. And maybe some of us ain't, but you know, that's another discussion.
I totally agree with you, brother. That sentiment, it's not a sentiment, but it's true what you said. It's about taking back what has been put out there. Understanding that it's time.
Yeah, don't be afraid to unlearn and relearn. Yeah, don't be afraid of that.
Like, just know that we got receipts. I'm gonna keep saying this for people.
Oh, that's what I want to say too.
We got receipts. Sorry,
I got mad receipts on these cats.
We got receipts. I handed them over to the accountant, and he's checking receipts, bro. So I hope y'all who's watching this, I hope you got your receipts together.
Yo, bro, I got mad receipts. One of them I'll pull right now. I'm gonna just say it. They was in a movie called This Is It. I'm not gonna mention no names, but if you know what I'm talking about. You know, they was hanging around us. They got fed through us. You know what I'm saying? They were influenced by dancing on our scene, and they ended up dancing on the stage with Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? Like that. Well, before Michael Jackson passed away, they were supposed to go on tour with him. But if y'all know what I'm talking about, we could talk about it later. But they were in here in Colorado, man.
Hey,
you know,
Jared,
Jared, start.
Jared, speak on it.
You mean the Star Toys? The Star Toys where we no, I'm just kidding. No, because the thing is about it too, like we have a lot of artists that come from Colorado, India Reese from Colorado, you know, who is it from Earth, Wind and Fire? I'm trying to think of hold on, DeAndre will help me with this one. Gosh, there's so many Commons Pop stay out here in Colorado. There's a lot of hip hop influencers that love this place, that come out here, that come from here, that you would never know. Yeah, Philip Bailey. Thank you. I was trying to say Philip Bailey. Went to New Hope. He sang at Jocelyn Ford's. Yeah, his Joe Kills. Yeah. Anyway, I'm just repeating Colorado history. There's a ton of it here. There's so much of it, and there's a lot of controversial things in Colorado too, like the names of the streets that go down by the Capitol. If you do that history, you know, Cheeseman Park, what's the history of that? Up in Boulder, what's the history of that? Especially because y'all was dancing up there in Boulder, right outside of Boulder, where we did the permaculture class. Like, there's a lot of history that's very dark and dangerous and hurtful, but if we can't talk about it, we can't bring about the healing that needs to happen. That's the first thing we gotta be able to do, is like put down the emotional side and really think about the healing that can happen through these conversations.
Ooh, spot on, man. You are fucking spot on, man. Let's see. Do you have any last thing you want to touch before we bring everyone back on here?
No, I heard something really good the other day that I loved, you know what I mean? And I'll try to just sum it up and saying like, don't forget about the miracle of life. Don't let fear grasp us so hard that we're not like taking care and loving each other and hugging each other. I know this COVID thing is real. I'm not saying it's not. I pray for anyone who's been affected by it and whose family has been touched by it. But I also know the power in the metaphysical mind of love and the frequency of love. We're electromagnetic beings. If we forget that magic, that we are that vibration, and it comes from deep inside of you, then we've lost the meaning of life. Like, I don't want to be going outside and afraid to breathe the air. You know, jams were based off of that organic spiritual connection and the ciphers of being together. So let's not lose that through fear. You know, caution, education, I totally agree with. You know, be responsible, be respectful, but let's not live behind the fear, y'all. The fear mongering got to go. You know, we are united people in hip hop. Like I said, wholly integrated people having omnipresent power. We're all over the globe and beyond. So yeah, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I appreciate that. Ashe to the ancestors.
I think, no, we appreciate you coming on, man. Colorado just needs to hear your guys' voices, and I'm glad they're listening right now. Everything you said, man, just there's so much to take in, right now.
Right.
A lot of us are gonna have to go back and watch this video over again and and really hear what's going on, because man, you guys are speaking some truth 100%. I love it. Thank you, Jared. I didn't do this.
Sure.
I forgot to do this with DeAndre and Summer. When I get them back on, I got to do this. But how can people find you and reach out to you?
Oh, right now I'm just on my IG, JRed303. I don't do too much social media in there. I'm in the garden and I'm, trying to get that right. But it definitely JRed303. That's where I'm at all day. Knowledge bone food.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Just hit me up there. And on my Facebook is Jared Desmond Hill. But anytime, man. Yeah. JRed303, holla at me if you just, even if you just want to have a conversation. My ears, my heart is open to everybody. You want to pick up the phone just to talk and get some more insight about my studies, but study. In a time where we're at the information age and there's so much misinformation going on, that's crazy. So like, remember, just keep your head right, keep your mind right.
Ooh. Love you, man. Thank you.
Love you guys
go ahead
too,
and stay
man.
on. Toby's gonna start bringing everyone in right now.
Okay, I'm gonna mute my.
This is gonna be pretty interesting to have everyone in the same room, and we're just gonna let you guys go off, man. We're gonna let you guys have the conversations that need to be had. Troy, if you got some more questions and you got some more, this is time for you guys to have, all of us to have a circle and let's talk about some things. And now you are all in the same room. I don't really have an agenda. I think as conversations have gone with everyone, it has, you guys are taking notes and I'm pretty sure you guys have stuff to say right now to keep going. So I'm going to open up the table for conversation. You two people, right now, I will give you an opportunity to write some questions in, put some questions in, everyone watching on YouTube, that I could ask this panel. So let's go. Troy, you want to start it off?
First of all, I would like to thank Brother Love, Summer, Brother D, and Brother Jared for being here with us. It's something that's very important in what we need to do at this point in time. But I feel like we just scratched the surface of where we are. There's a lot more that needs to be talked about. And I want to open up the forum to you guys. And I'm just gonna get to the point. Let's look at this this vocabulary and this appropriation thing, because it's real, man. And let's get real. We've lost people because of this appropriation. Physically, we buried bodies because of this appropriation. We have lost jobs. Communities have been broken up because of this appropriation. And I just feel we're at a point that, enough is enough, man. Enough is enough. And I keep saying, it's time for pink slips. We got receipts. What y'all feel about these receipts, man?
I think there was an important thing that was touched on by a couple of folks, especially around controlling the narrative. I think so much of what's happening in the country, because I'm going to keep tying this discussion back to what's going on at large, because that's why this whole conversation was started, is that there's a narrative that we're not in control of. And one of the things, that Jared brought up around this misinformation and stuff like that, is just like, we're not, savvy consumers of internet information. We use our platform for getting eyeballs on us, but very few of us have stuff to say. Going back to what I said about like anger stuff earlier, it's just like we have a reason and a right to be angry. But I always kind of grew up with this understanding that your emotions are powerful. And when you're feeling your emotions, and we know this as artists, when you feel your emotions, you use the power of your emotion to turn it into something. If it's a piece of artwork, that's what it is. If it's kind of spearheading a social movement, that's what it is. If it's like building a place where people can come to express themselves, that's what it is. And as far as like going back to Troy says about these receipts and stuff like that, we need to really start using our voices collective as a community and holding studios, people that make money on the backs of hip hop and the culture, just like hip hop and house and beyond that, voguing and whacking and, you know, even jazz and stuff like that. We need to start like holding these people accountable. I'm not saying go in and like bum rush them and just really try to like put them down and stuff like that, but we need to be more insistent with our voices and really ask questions. Because like when people realize that they have gaps in their knowledge, a lot of times if their head, it gets their head in the right place. It makes them actually start asking questions like, oh, wow, okay. You know, I didn't really know that was a thing. And people are not really asking me that question. So maybe I need to start doing more to answer it.
Anybody
Yeah.
else want to tap
Yeah,
in?
no, yeah, I agree. I agree definitely. Like the you know, my pops, his whole job during the civil rights movement was to go around and explain to different cultures what it was like to grow up in America, being Black in America at the time. So it's literally his job to go to Native American reservations, different places to explain. But they had to take these nonviolent classes, you know, to how to be nonviolent, how to stand there and take a punch and get hit, how to cover up to protect yourself, but to be nonviolent like that. And I grew up differently than that because I was like, not me, hell no. You know, I was like, there's no way I'll do that. And as I got older, I finally understood the power in it. You know what I'm saying? Because I do agree, like, I'm not trying to get hit, don't get me wrong. And I'm actually all for it. And plus, you know, like the fight back. But I do notice a power and a peace and tranquility and the ability to be nonviolent. There's a difference. I mean, you know, to be nonviolent and to understand how to hold your place and use your power, you know, and I think that's important, understanding, because there is a time and a place for everything. Because I kind of agree. Like, I'm like, burn it down. Don't let, you know, don't get stepped on. I totally agree with that 100% too. But I want what I do want people to see is that I have seen a power of peace and power, like in tranquility, and learning the ability to be nonviolent, to not even oppose. It's like Tai Chi. When there's nothing to push against, there's no force. You know, we have to put ourselves different ways. We got to focus.
And that's different than being passive. Because I agree with what you're saying, Jared, but I think the way that a lot of people misinterpret that nonviolent or peaceful way is being passive and just taking whatever falls on your shoulders. And that's not it.
Yeah, fuck
you know, I mean, it's just like there's a bigger thing that we're moving forward, trying to build and transform here. We're just at one moment in time of a long conversation and a long series of events that have been happening since America's inception.
Right.
The community, our dance community, is just a microcosm of that. You know, but it's important to understand that peaceful way is not passivity.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we have to do, I'm sorry, Summer, you were going to say something.
I think also we just have to, like, part of that peaceful thing is what does accountability look like? How are we starting to hold people accountable?
Yes. Yes.
And in that terms, it's I had this discussion before, you know, all the protests started, and when COVID-19, Corona, whatever we want to call it, when that began, I got laid off of my job, and I was talking to a friend, and we were talking about, you know, what are you going to do when you go in for your next interview? And what are you going to ask them? Like, you're going to ask the people, because you're also interviewing the job. You're going to say, what did you do for your employees during the coronavirus? Did you lay everybody off? And so I think that's kind of the thing that we have to start holding accountable for people, non-people of color that are teaching hip hop, that are making the money and doing the work. We have to say, walk into that studio and say, what are you going to allow me to do as I step into this space to teach your students, and how are you going to hold everybody else accountable so that we're teaching authentic hip hop here? I think we just have to see what it looks like.
I agree. And in addition to that, Summer, too, like in addition to what Summer is saying, there's a bigger conversation to have there because it goes beyond just like the authenticity of hip hop. It's just like, this is also a place where their ideas about Black and brown people need to be challenged.
Yes.
You know, it's just like, you have people who come and take these classes and stuff like that, and then they get around Blacks and Latinos and they don't really know how to handle themselves. They don't know what to do. You know, so it's just like, you're learning an art form that developed in a very specific culture and context from a very specific and identifiable group of people. But then you can have a very sort of lackadaisical or apathetic attitude about the fate of those people, and even in the worst cases be just like downright aggressive or passive aggressive.
Right.
You know, it's just like, there's a certain level of accountability that people need to be held to in terms of, you know, and Larry mentioned this. It's like, how are you giving back to the culture? It may not even be in the form of money and stuff like that, but if there is ignorance in your studio, in your community, and you're basically using hip hop to make money, then you are complicit in letting that ignorance fester.
Yeah.
Because you're not taking something that gives you the benefit of financial, you know, gains, you know, financial compensation, and you're just basically letting all this stuff happen in all the places where this stuff comes from. And it's not just hip hop. We have a long history of that.
Yeah.
It's like, it was the same thing with our music too. There was like what they originally called race music and blues and rock and roll and disco. Disco was originally called danceable soul, and disco became like the commercial version of it. Just like breaking was really originally b-boying and b-girling, and breaking got caught on by the beat, like got a foothold in the media and stuff like that. And so it's just like, it's like I said, it's a bigger discussion than just this.
Yeah.
You know, people are taking our stuff and just being passive about like what happens to us.
Yes, I agree with that 100% because I think I wrote a note about that too. Like, again, when we don't control the narrative, like how everybody say, Michael Jackson invented the moonwalk. And then when you go to the creators of it, they're saying, actually, it's called the backwards glide. And Jeffrey Dan, you know what I'm saying? Those things. And we didn't control that. But the rest of the world, the harder part is that sometimes they don't care. Well, Michael Jackson invented it and it's the moonwalk. And, you know, even when you correct them, you're like, no, I'm trying to tell you, I'm trying to educate you. Well, that's not how I know it. And when people have that attitude, it's like, dang, where are we going to go? Because, you know, I'm just trying to tell you the true, authentic history. Even he would tell you that, but you would rather go with what you've been told. So, like, you know, it's that old saying that it's easier to trick somebody than convince them they've been tricked and fooled.
Right.
And so you're fighting that idea. I think one of the other things we can do is start pushing our students towards also other businesses that really like that fit the integrity of what we're trying to accomplish. You know, sometimes I don't think you can stop the mega dance studios because there might be a demand for millennium and pop culture. And, you know, we may not get inside those studios to say, hey, this is what we're doing. Because unfortunately, that's just what the hell it is to me.
You can't
maybe
stop them.
Yeah, you can't stop it. So instead, and I guess this is what I was saying about just like, instead of, I don't mean peaceful, I guess I'm saying refocus our energy on things we can develop. This is another saying I like too, is like, you'll never see Mother Teresa at like a rally protesting the protest. She's gonna be at the orphanage taking care of the kids. Like, so I feel like let's build the orphanage. Let's take care of the children, because some people, you're just gonna go out there and they're gonna fight you because they want to fight you, or they're gonna disagree with you just because it empowers them to be your opposing factor. And instead of giving that any power, let's just, you know, give it to the ones who cherish it, who will take it and go. And let's try to, you know, that's even building business with infrastructure. Like, you know, Summer, you gonna start a studio one day. You know, I know DeAndre had his for a while, but maybe his focus is other places now. But if you can, at least I could point somebody to Summer's studio or this studio and say, hey, if you really want to get the authentic culture and you want to address things that where they have integrity and they're trying to build these type of students and community, that we can do that as well. But
yeah. We have to really kind of refocus our efforts. My thing and my observations over time is that if you want to actually get rid of a system or sidestep a system or dismantle a system, you have to build a new system in its place.
Correct.
Because like, we can shout to the wind to all these people and stuff like that. At the end of the day, it's just like what Jared said. They don't care. They don't necessarily have to care. There are some people that you can have conversations with and you can bring them around to a different way of thinking. You can challenge them and have those discussions. But at the end of the day, really, if you want to get rid of an old system, you've got to build a new system in its place.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
platforms like this, like what BreakEFX is doing, with this podcast, we have all this amazing talent and all these amazing resources. Like you said, we trained like dancers that have had eyeballs on them, that when they left Colorado and went to LA and went to New York, people, just like Summer said, they're asking, who is that person? Who is that person? We have those resources. There was this meme that I saw once. It was this dude that was standing on a bunch of ladders stacked up on each other, trying to look over a wall. And the quote, and I'm paraphrasing, was just that not knowing how to use a resource is as bad as not having one. we have plenty of resources.
So true.
Yeah, it's just like we have plenty of resources. So this is where we need to start. It's just like I have plenty that I can say about the world and the way the world is looking at us and the way the world tries to undermine us. That's a fight that we're constantly going to have to fight.
Yeah.
But at home, in our community, there are other things that we need to do to start empowering us to fight that fight more effectively.
Absolutely.
Brother
And
Al-
would you, I was going to ask DeAndre a question real quick though about that, because I agree, like you have the resources, but do we know how to utilize the resources, And if there's a point where you don't feel like you can, do you have any advice towards like, the work you can do to be like, well, how do I want to build? How do I begin to even express my ideas of wanting to like get these people together or do a convention or a workshop or bring people here to start that, that whole
Man,
idea.
try and fail. I've failed so many times and I keep trying. And a lot of times people feel like I'm 48 years old, I'll be 49 in 2 months. And it's one of those things that people feel like if their stuff isn't successful the first time, that they stop. Like, try and fail. I mean, just like there's a reconnection happening here, because I haven't seen Summer in a long time. Jared, you and I run into each other every now and again, and we've talked since this COVID thing, and Troy and I run into each other every now and again. So sometimes you end up getting in this situation where you can reconnect with people who have gone through evolutions in their life and have been able to actually learn some lessons and build some things. And then you have that synergy that comes together. It's just like Epi coming back into my life and then providing me this platform to do this. We all help each other, so it's just like, but we also have to get into this mindset too, that it's going to be, it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. And that sometimes we're going to falter, we're going to fall by the wayside. We've got to not be afraid of trying things and failing. And we have to pay attention to fundamentally what it is that we're trying to do. It's just like there are lessons that we need to learn, and we need to build ourselves up to do that sort of stuff, and don't try to become like prematurely enlightened. Like the first thing that you get that seems like it solves a problem is the answer, because like a lot of times when you're desperate for an answer, that first person that shows up with the solution may not really be trying to give you a solution to your problem. They're trying to give you a solution to theirs.
Right. Man, that's so true. My last note was on that, what you said, co-opted, because even we brought up like Martin and Malcolm. I know, Troy, when you say Martin and Malcolm on my shoulder, and both of those movements got infiltrated, both of them. Like and that's what's happening even with hip hop. They came up with the hip hop police and co-opted hip hop. So we have to remember is that this is the terrain. This is what we're dealing with. You're not going to just change it. Just understand what you're dealing with. That people are going to come in that don't have the culture's best interest at hand, and actually the opposite might be trying to infiltrate because of how powerful it is. So we need to be mindful of that. What what area we're in.
Going back to something that Summer said earlier too, which I meant to touch on, but it's just like I wrote it down because I was just like, I want to make sure that I get this. When she was talking about like choreography versus dancing, as a tool within the community, it's just like, and I feel like the people that hold this down the most are the people where you don't really actually see a lot of choreography, are the B-boys and B-girls. That there's that constant evolution that you see with B-boys and B-girls mastering the dance and owning the culture. And I feel like those of us that are not primarily B-boys and B-girls could learn a huge lesson from that in the way that we approach people. Because like I've learned a lot, even in my dance, because I'm not a B-boy, but I've learned a lot from B-boys and B-girls. you know, and just the relationships that I've had with them. And even by the way of like learning movement and the culture. And some of the people that I listen to that I hold in high regard who have been very generous in their offers to like to mentor me and teach me and stuff like that. Quick Step is one of them. You know, I have a relationship with him. You know, Track 2 drops knowledge in my ear a lot. You know, or like I've had the privilege of him having done that a lot on my encounters with him. That we do need to really start probably from the inside out, making people focus more on the dancing than the choreography. Choreography is great, and I'm not saying disregard that, because choreography I think is an important teaching tool. But Buddha Stretch, you know, always talked about his take and his perspective on choreography, about like from this perspective of using the dance first. You know, you'll have a lot of people do like move, 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 move. I'll throw a little bit of hip hop in here, or they'll bastardize a movement that they can't do really well and all kinds of stuff like that. And then all of a sudden it's like it's hip hop choreography, and that's not it. You know, if we focus on the root of the dancing and the culture first, and then blossom that into choreography, that's one way for us to really kind of start taking control of the narrative. And what's interesting is like in this modern day of social media and just like, you know, multimedia worldwide, we have the ears and the eyes of people who are influencers as well. You know, it's just like, how many degrees of separation are we from the twins? You know, how many degrees of separation are we from any of these other big names that are choreographers?
Right.
Like how many phone calls would have to be made to actually get us in touch with that person? You know, I got a chance to meet Don Campbell not once but twice before he died. You know, who was a person who influenced my dance a lot. You know, like I teach locking. You know, I've had a chance to meet Sam Solomon, Boogaloo Sam, you know, and Pop and Pete, you know, Timothy Solomon's. Like we're just like a few phone calls away from these people that have bigger influence. You know, so we need to start really kind of using the tools that we have.
Yeah.
Can I just add on that? Because I got notes from you, DeAndre, and you, Jared, and just like basically with the choreography stuff and dancing and the spiritual side that Jared was talking about. When I moved to LA, I had Super Dave tell me that I should go take Showtime's class. He teaches the hour and a half of class that's basically no choreography, is all grooves. It's all social dance, all grooves. And the first day I took his class, everybody was sweated out. I sweated out my shirt and everything. And I realized at that moment that hip hop dance is not just like, it's more than just dance. You connect with the people in the room, you connect with self, you connect with the floor you're dancing on, you connect with the movement. And most importantly, like Buddha Stretch says all the time, the reason you dance is because of the music. And with hip hop, we have to make sure that we're dancing to hip hop, R&B, that music when we're teaching those styles. And you have to make sure that like when you're teaching that you're actually connecting to your students and to what hip hop is community. And like Andre was saying, like Epi pulled us in. We've been part of the community for a minute. And when Troy was talking to Jared about never trying to like trump each other, but like push each other so that you reach this new level, hip hop is community. It's not about how big I can get from it. It's about spirituality and what I get and give. And I think that's what's missing from, I think a lot of Black and brown people know that, but because it's been so commercialized and because it's been so monetized, it's what hip hop give to me because it's popular right now.
Yeah.
And we just have to get back to what hip hop is. It's connecting, and human life is connecting to music and to people and to self and to the earth. And that's like number one for me. I think
Yeah.
that's what we need to get back.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Gerard.
absolutely. Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that. I completely agree because the tribal aspect of it, connecting to the music and the way we would dance, like how Apache lines, where they came from that march they would do before they went into battle. That was calling on a spirit. And I think that when we start to just get into this choreo and this idea of lines and how it looks and it being perfect, you extract some of the spiritual aspect of, like, what it really truly is just vibe and no movement. You're just connecting and bringing about that spirit of the dance, and it's tribal. So I agree with you. Like, that has been extracted from it when we kind of get into this commercializing of it and monetizing it and whatnot. So sorry, go ahead, D.
No, because I was taking it in a slightly different direction because I wanted to ask this question, kind of tying it back to this moment in time, because we're really in the context of hip hop talking about a relationship between Black and brown people and the rest of the larger culture.
Okay.
But because I have my ideas of what this answer is, but some of you have traveled a little bit more than I have too. Do you see this more as an American problem? Like, I know there are some aspects of it in other places, but when I look at like dancers who come here from other countries, when they come to my class, they're really deep into asking about the culture. They want to know. I feel like a lot of times I see this problem more with Americans who want to just kind of take it and run with it. Culture and history be damned.
Agreed, 100%. I did and have had the opportunity to travel quite a bit across the country and internationally. And I think that just as a culture, Americans, like, we kind of take it for granted in a way, like, oh, it comes from here. We did it. It's us. And then that gives us an excuse to not really know the true and accurate history. We're just like, oh, I'm American. We're hip hop. And you don't even know, Cedric Avenue or KRS-One, like, you don't know Kool Herc. But you're just like, but I am hip hop. I'm American. I think that attitude sometimes blocks us, whereas people are like, oh, it's from America. I'm going to soak it up and eat everything I can. Because that's one thing I was going to say about the vibration that I've noticed about traveling outside of Colorado and then coming back to our circles. We have such a pure and a raw talent out here, but we also have a ceiling that we hit by not having placed ourselves in those different environments and receiving that energy. Because I know that every time I go to New York, LA, Chicago, any other place, I can feel the difference in the frequency and the temperature of the culture, the pulse of the city in Oakland, the pulse of the city in LA. And so when you go there and you start to dance out there and put yourself, you feel that spirit of that tribal and that essence of that community, you feel the difference, you know what I'm saying? So, but then when we come back out here, I think we have the tendency to be like, well, we still have that attitude that blocks us from seeing that it's bigger than just, right there.
Now, one of those things too, one of the things behind that too is like all the places that you just mentioned have large Black and Latino populations.
Right.
Which is different from here. Because I feel a big difference when I go to New York and dance.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And I'm saying when you go into some of those circles, you feel the difference. Like, I was in a club in Atlanta once. And man, you feel the essence of spirit. It was packed wall to wall. And don't get me wrong, I like ratchet shit too. I like bumping my head to some of that stuff. I'm just saying, be appropriate with our children, but I like some of that ratchet turn up. But the power, the actual spiritual power that I felt in some of those places, I understand actually why people fear it. Because it's that unification that it's like thunder. You're like, holy, this is a real power. And again, when we're out here and it's a little bit dispersed and it's not as strong, you can feel the difference. So I would encourage you to be like, know that there's a difference.
Yeah. Well, also, D, there are no studios in Denver. I mean, all of the studios that have been created that teach hip hop have been in Boulder, which is far removed from the Black and brown communities. If you think about it.
Yeah.
So there's no place in Denver.
Oh, hold up her mic. There we go.
Oh, there we go.
There's no place in Denver for people to get this authentic and be around the Black and brown people and have a studio in a Black and brown neighborhood.
I agree.
Because then they go make it.
So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that really lacks, you know, and it's really, I think the only way to remedy that is to have one of us, somebody, you know, create a studio, but it also has to be backed by the dance community, which it hasn't been.
And just like, especially, I agree with you, because given to that, all the stuff that I've tried to do with DOF in the last 6 years is to really try to bootstrap that, you know, to like have it in places where I bring folks in, you know, on top of the people that we have here to be able to teach it. It's one of those things that, like, I've done it 6 years. I can't really do it alone, you know, and this is the thing I say, like, try and fail. And more people have made themselves available to me just this year alone to be more resources. So just like as a community, we have to be really clear. You know, I think there's this, and I had this conversation with Kenny Menace a couple of days ago. Also, when we talk about unity and unification, I think that some people, especially people listening to this, you know, to the podcast right now, may get this idea that when we talk about unity and oneness, that we're talking about homogeneity. No, we're talking about compatibility in our goals and our direction and our mutual respect. That's unity.
Right.
You don't have to be me. You don't have to dance like me. And you don't even have to understand all the things that I understand about the culture. You know, because we're constantly going to be involved in this, seeing it from different perspectives and having this dialogue and all kinds of stuff like that. But there's definitely a need and a place to engage what's happening in Denver a different way.
Yeah, I agree with you, D.
Yeah,
because I wanted to say, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just saying that we don't really have that space right now. Everything is really underground.
Yeah.
You know, like B-boys and B-girls have been doing it like that way for generations, and it's been effective getting together in a space and collaborating that. Unfortunately, beyond B-boying and B-girling, everybody else really kind of depends on studios, which I think is a weakness of ours too.
Yeah, I agree.
I never knew jack about studios growing up.
Yeah, me too. And because it was always in the streets, it was, you know, the front yard, the neighbor's house on the corner of the sidewalk. And I think the danger is every time we took it in the studio, we had to make the others feel safe. Like you're coming in and you're bringing that urban culture in here, but in here we're safe. And it's like, what you mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? And that kind of like when we've had to adjust our attitudes and adjust the way that people respond to us, like, don't be the angry Black person, or don't be so aggressive, or why are you so passionate, or why are you moving like that? Because I'm expressive. That's how I like to move myself. But when we have to go in there and be a certain way to conform, I think that's dangerous too. Like, we shouldn't have to conform our way because this is what it is, which is really why I miss a place like the Spot. You know, because at the Spot, you might be afraid to walk outside and you might get in a fight when you go outside.
Jerry, you touch on another thing that I believe is important too. You know, kind of like something that sort of crossed my mind, that we as people who have been professionals in this, I think one of the other things that we need to start doing too, because I feel like it still happens in the street and it still happens in social situations, different than the way that we came up, but we have to reach out to those people too. You know, because one of my desires and one of my goals is to get the people who do it at like house parties and in their backyard and in the basement with their cousins and stuff like that, to really kind of inform all of this stuff. You know, it's just like when I started like getting my connection with like a lot of the breakers and stuff like that in Denver, a lot of them were relatives. They were relatives with each other. Yeah, this is my cousin, so on and so forth. So, you know, Ray was put on by his brother, you know? And so it's just like, you know, that there's that connection right there. And so it's brewing in the underground. But what has happened, and unfortunately, I think that we've unconsciously been a part of this co-opting process, is that people have pulled it into the studios and then have wall gardened it. They have this wall around it, you know, and so people in the streets and people in their basements and people in their backyards, the clubs don't know anything about this. It is a multi-billion-dollar worldwide industry that has opened doors for careers and travel and just upward mobility in all kinds of ways and stuff like that. And what we see right now is that people get to a certain level where they'll do it as a kid or as a teenager and they'll burn out, or there's like, oh, well, I have to do more serious things now because that's stuff that like kids and teenagers did. You know, just like people, I've run into people, it's like, oh God, I wish I would have kept on dancing. And it's just, well, why didn't you?
I want to share a bit of a personal experience that happened with me about that too, because before I even came up to Motion Underground, I used to kick it with a dude named Mecca. So shout out to Mecca. because
Eka.
he was
Yeah.
like, you know, back in the 90s was like the dude, like, oh my God, this is
Yeah,
Mecca.
yeah,
And
yeah.
he brought me to Motion, you know, and then Motion's perspective of me and Mecca was like, oh, those are those hip hop kids from the streets in Denver. But yeah. But at the same time, we were the club dancers. We were dancing in the clubs. Remember Tracks when it was under, you know, 20th over there? It was kind of sketchy to go. It was like, had the one light. You're like, yo, can we go in here? You know, but you know, that's where we were at. And then we went to the studio in Boulder, and they're like, oh, these are the street kids. And I remember as I came more to the studio laid me, oh, he's the popper. Not just the hip hop dancer, not Jared. Oh, he's popper, blue popper, red popper. But there was so many other things. Like hip hop is about originality. And when I did my hat, that was my original expression. But I allowed certain stereotypes to box me in. It's just freedom of expression. You know what I'm saying? Because I do agree, like taking the history and the vocabulary and knowing, that's what allows for that freedom of expression. That's what actually expands you into that zone when you know your vocabulary and you understand the context in which you're using it and how to expand it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that the dangers of bringing those kids who are now like, what's the new terminology, turfing and jigging and juking and all these new dances that are now in the basement and the streets and the bone breaking and all these different things. When you bring them into a studio environment to present that street culture, what are the dangers in losing oneself and coming into a new culture? Because studio culture is a different culture than street culture.
We need to be the sentinels of that because we've been through it and we know. Just like the people that were before us in concert dance and stuff like that opened doors for more Black expression in dance. We need to be able to cultivate and nurture people to bring that expression into the studio and not lose their voices. Because we have to be able to actually give them the skill sets to be professional with what they do, but not lose the authenticity and rawness of their voice. Look at what Reddy Harris did with Pure Movement, you know. And people go back and forth in their opinions around what Reddy did and stuff like that, because some people feel like, you know, what he did was not necessarily an authentic expression. And you can argue all day long about all kinds of stuff like that. But he brought a raw expression into theater that had not been there before. And that doesn't mean that it has to be the end all be all. That's a progression. The next person to come along can bring a new raw expression, you know, because the door has been opened. But we have to be the sentinels for that. We have to be able to figure out how to go get those people and say like, yo, it's like, young man, young woman, you have a voice. And I want to be able to get you to a place where you can express that voice to a larger audience, because this thing that you have is not a throwaway skill. Like, even if you decide to pivot in your life and do something else, what you have now is powerful. And that should be able to open doors for you. So just like, given what we've seen, you know, like I said, I keep bringing this back to like larger what happens in the country and stuff like that. We're so fragmented in our approach. Like, you know, King era civil rights, Malcolm X era civil rights and stuff like that. There was a lot of planning that went on, a lot of connection. People planned in their churches. You know, you didn't make a move in a protest without having a plan before you go in there. So
Absolutely.
Like, I'm not necessarily a person to be in a protest. I think protests are important, but too much of what I've seen turns me off from protests, because people get there in that moment in protest, and then when the threat is over and they feel like satisfied, it has basically become like performative justice, and then it just like it drifts off to the side. Shit doesn't get done.
Real talk.
But it's one of those things that, you know, we have to start making those connections in our community and planning a little bit more to give people that voice and that energy and step up, because we're elders. I'm more elder than all of you, just barely more than Troy, at least a decade more than the rest of you. My time is going to come to an end being able to do this physically. I'll always support dance until I die, you know, but there's going to be limited mileage where people are going to listen to me, and I'm not going to always be connected to the new stuff that's going on. You know, so just like as a community and as people who become elders, we have to do that. We have a responsibility to do that.
Yeah.
Which means we have to come up with kind of like a list of demands or a list of declarations.
Like declaration,
or some kind of thing that says this is what we want in our dance community, because that's what the planning and the protest is for. You plan the protest, you get to the protest, and you say, this is what we want.
This is what we want, right?
We want this now. We want this, and that's how things get changed. But we can't just like have this platform that we're doing right now, and then
fall apart.
Right.
And I agree with that. Just to piggyback on that, I think that it starts here in these conversations. You create the, you know, your demands, what you want, you know, and then apply it. And one thing I wanted to charge everyone to do, I've been seeing of these videos lately on TikTok, you know, of the young Caucasian children speaking to their parents about racism. And wow, some of the stubbornness and the, like, you know, that we're trying to teach the older generation to their like children. I don't know if you've seen any of these yet, but it's like young white kids who are talking to their parents about racism and systemic racism. And you hear the mentality that is baked into the minds of those parents. And they're like, no, you're wrong. These are animals and these are this. And that's crazy. But I do think that that's where the fight begins, is in your own home. Like, you have to be the one to change it, because if you go outside of yourself and say, well, hey, how can I help you, or what can I do? And the best thing that you can do is go back into your own home and dispel these myths, dispel this spell of this idea that you have of what people and who they are in society, and re-educate yourself. And then you have to fight that in your own table first, because that's where education first starts. You know what I mean? When you become a citizen or a person in society, the first things you learn how to act. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. Okay. This, that. You learn it from in your house. And if that structure is not there, then you have someone who's just kind of performing what they would say dysfunctionally in society. But if you're not taught, you don't know. And I think it's important to like not assume that you know, but to come to an understanding that you know, and then go do that. So you're going to have a lot of people, you know, outside of the Black race. So because I can't use any other words to describe it, but are going to have to do that fight in their own living rooms, at their own dinner tables, within their own community, saying, nah, man, you got a warped perspective of the world. You need to like change that. And it's not our responsibility, because I'm the canvas. You're painting that racism and that stereotype on me. Like, that's not my view of the world. So don't paint that your stereotype on me. Take responsibility. Like, I don't want to put any on stereotypes, because it's human to human connection. It's experience, and that's the best teacher.
I want to add to that, because, well, a lot of people, and I get it. I get why a lot of people have been complicit and have not said anything. And because and this is what I've been using with people that have been text messaging me or calling me. I say to them, I understand, and I use a joke: cake or death. You know, like if you're in a line and you're standing in this line and it's your turn to come up, and the question, you know what the question is. The question is cake or death. And you mess up and you say death. That I get why people aren't choosing that on purpose, because as a studio owner, you don't make money if you don't have students. And if you're having people that are teaching something that somebody doesn't agree with, your job is to be authentic or to make money. So I get it why people are not saying stuff, because nobody would choose to live the life that we are that we live. Nobody would choose to say, okay, I want to stick up for my person, but that means that I'm also going to have to let go of all of these privileges that I have, because they don't get to do this, they don't get to do that, and I'm speaking out against that. So that may hinder me. And I get it. People have to literally choose cake or death. And a lot of people have been choosing cake. And I understand, because it's good, it's sweet, it's lovely to live the life and not have to worry about anything. But people have to start choosing the other option and stick up for other people. And again, it just comes back to connecting. You have to connect to the other people and understand that a lot of people, the Black and brown people, do not have the same privileges and affordabilities that some of these studios we go into. I know I went to a dance studio. I went to Cleo's because she lives on my block. She's lived down the street from me for my entire life. I went to her studio like when I was 7 years old for a year. And my parents were like, all right, you get music or dance. Which one do you want? So I had to make the choice. But I never, I didn't take class all the time. So I get why people are not speaking up. But we also, again, what does accountability look like? We have to literally possibly not go teach there and let those people lose that money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have to hold the dance community like accountable and say, don't go teach this class.
Yeah. The thing is that we have to address that. We have to use our platforms to make people outside question those studios. Because the thing is that the studio is always going to be accountable to their customer demand. Any business is going to be. But the thing is that we have to start making more sophisticated consumers. We have to use our voices and our connections to have those conversations. We're never going to be able to change this without non-Black and brown people.
Right.
Plain and simple. We're too small in the country. We don't have enough. It's like we don't have enough media exposure. We don't have enough media influence. We have plenty of exposure. We don't have enough control. It goes back to that whole controlling the narrative thing. You know, so we really have to actually start educating people and communicating with them in a way that makes them question their own experience. Because I'll tell you, even being on Facebook right now, I look at people that I'm connected to that, like, I'll deal with people on the level that they're on and stuff like that. But I've been doing a lot of sitting and a lot of thinking with what's been going on, trying to figure out how to engage certain people. You know, I'm questioning, why do I even have this person, you know, kind of in my periphery? I believe in not living in an echo chamber, but I also believe in not having toxic people in your life too.
Right.
You know, so I have to kind of start figuring that out. And so I'm trying to figure out how to use my platform to engage in conversations with people and then gauge the level of the authenticity with which they're willing to hear. Because people have very sophisticated defense mechanisms and way of sidestepping conversations. They want to get philosophical. They want to get theoretical. You know, they want to play devil's advocate. Yeah, they want to get hypothetical. They want to do all these other things and then still be largely informed by ignorance. And even when you give them information, they want to figure out some way to kind of work around that and break it down to like, well, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? Breaking it down on such an epistemological level and stuff like that. Motherfucker, how do you know there are shoes on your feet? You know, it's just like, there's only a certain level that you can go to ask these questions. At a certain point, it's deflection. At a certain point, it's deflection.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just kind of like, I keep myself available and visible to people because I hope I can be that example. But, you know, that real change, I wish I had better answers for it, but yeah, we have to start making more sophisticated consumers, you know, and it's one of those things we have to start looking to the lessons of our elders. How did King and Malcolm do it? You know, there are a lot of things that we don't really understand about how they do it. I mean, it's just like a lot of people listening here and stuff like that. You know, what was the connection between Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King? You know, and then how many of you know about the Highland School? You know, it's just like the Highland School is where Rosa Parks actually engaged in some of her training for like some of her nonviolent action and protesting and societal change. But everybody thinks that it's like this story about Rosa Parks being tired on the bus one day and then not moving. That was a planned action. You know, it's just like there's so much stuff that we don't know about how to move forward with it. And then we still, on top of that, have to try to teach other people about our right to exist, our right to not be treated like animals, you know, our right to not be treated like livestock. As a matter of fact, in America, animals get better treatment sometimes than Black and brown people do.
Yeah.
You know,
because we have
you don't have the Black and brown equivalent of a vegan.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have to get rid of that deeply rooted hatred, like that deep rooted hatred for like even the self-hate and like why, again, being considered 3/5 of human being, that was in the mind frame. And you may say it changed on paper, but it didn't change in the mentality. It's always still looked upon as you are less than, you will never be less. And like, so you can change it on paper all you want, but until it's changed in the attitude and the
froze up on us.
So
to add to what
if you No, it's okay. No, sorry. Just okay. I meant just to finish was that if you look at some of the stuff that I think was at the dinner table discussions from Emmett Till to Fred Hampton. If you don't know who Fred Hampton is, you know, 21 killed in his bed.
by the government, by J. Edgar Hoover, and this was the foundation of our understanding of how we exist in the world, was through like, oh, yo, it's a different world for us when we go out there. Like that was in my household. I was always told as a young kid, yo, when you get pulled over by the cops, this is how you act, this is how you behave, you know what I mean? And so we grew up in so many different Americas, and now I realized that, because if I was the one to do my friend, no, they would stand in front of me like, oh, well, okay, here, let me stand over here while this, I'm sorry it's happening, man, I'm poor you. And it's like, no, if it's happening to us, sooner or later it's gonna happen to you, because the system will come and kick your ass too. Like when they, you know what I'm saying? Like when they ran you, that ain't me. We're in all of us, and eventually that mentality mind is so deep, and we don't walking outside or walking down the streets. I got profiled and arrested in my own dance studio because the guy was like, I saw you driving over there. Is this your place of business? I'm like, well, how would I have the key to get in? Well, stop, and turn me around and put me in handcuffs and everything. I was like, I got to teach in an hour, and we need to check you out. Why are you at? And I'm in my place of business. So to walk around, that had made me so mad for weeks. I felt so violated, and there was like nothing I could do about it. It's the way the mentality was, and and that is what I think is one of the biggest problems, and something we have to constantly attack. Is that it's not fake, it's not something in my head, it's not just an idea, it's not, oh, you're tripping, it's not any of that. Like so I just had to spit that out.
True.
Sorry, Summer, you were saying something.
On Facebook this year, I did this series called 29 Days of Black History, and I do that like pretty much like every leap year, where I try to go through Black history just in ways that it's not really taught in school. It was like, I'm the son of a teacher, so that's another kind of my nerdiness right there. But the thing is, and the focus that I tried to have on that this year is that especially Black people in America, and I think this happens to other degrees with other people of color, but especially Black people in America, we have been a whole separate nation of people since the time that we have arrived here. We have had different rights, we have had different communities, and sometimes that stuff overlaps and stuff like that. But the context in which we've actually created our arts, in which we've had our businesses, in which we've had our education, in which we've had our, just like our commerce, all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, like I could roll down the history, from what happened just post-slavery to the development of the Chitlin Circuit, to separation via Jim Crow, to the housing laws that separated us when we moved up north, and all kinds of other stuff like that. And even by the time we came to civil rights movement and the declarations around civil rights and the civil rights acts that were passed, we've had this issue where we've had these at least two separate worlds of Black people and the rest of America that have never been reconciled. And we're still fighting that fight now. This is not a new fight.
Yeah.
It's just like we poorly reconciled it in 1968. And we've basically been kind of fooling ourselves. While there have been some improvements, we fooled ourselves that the problem was fixed. I made this post on Facebook the other day. It's like being in a club and the fluorescents go off and somebody turned on the black light, and all of a sudden you see all the stains that you thought were washed out. It's just like, oh, there's that stain of mustard that I thought washed out. That stuff is still there. So we're still facing like the epic nature of that problem. Like, how do you reconcile at least two nations? And people are going to have to deal with a lot of their biases, and we see that really heavily, like in hip hop dance. That's the place that's like the most concrete evidence to us, because we live in that industry, and it's one of those things where it's culture and it's art for sale that people covet, but they don't want to understand it. They want to be thrilled by it, but they don't want to be made to look deeper into where it comes from.
I got drip for sale. Drip for sale.
Yeah. And so I wish I had, I have some ideas. I wish I had better answers. It's that frustration, just talking like to what Jared just said about being profiled. Troy, you've been profiled. I've been profiled. I talk police down. There are some situations I know could have gone worse, and I've seen things go worse for my relatives and stuff like that. But I look them straight in their eye, and I just like they know. I'll start asking questions. I got pulled over by a dude once, because I made a U-turn to park in front of the house of the woman that I was dating at the time. And the police officer, like as I pulled up to the curb to turn off my car, pulled that car around me, sirens blaring, and tried to clown me in front of his partner. And I asked him, what did I do? Why did you stop me? He says, I stopped you because you made a U-turn. And I looked him calmly in the eye and I told him, this is a residential street. I can make a U-turn here. And he stepped back for a second because he was just kind of like, okay, I need to step a little bit differently with the way I was going to do this. But he basically kept engaging and trying to berate me. It could have gone worse. It didn't go worse. And I think part of the reason is because I would calmly talk to him, even though he knew I was angry about it. But the other thing too is that the woman that I was dating at the time, she was white, and she came out of her house to kind of signify in the background that he's here to visit me. There were some mistakes made there too, in terms of like, well, what did you do? It's like, no, that's the wrong question. You ask what happened. Don't ask me what I did, because I didn't do anything. We've had those experiences, we've had those situations. We're still trying to fight the same fight. That is a minor example of the type of stuff that we have to go through.
Absolutely.
Like I said, through the lens of dance and hip hop, it happens a whole different way. We deal with it from like the commercial standpoint, the business standpoint, the artistic standpoint. It took us forever for people to to even think about, Black dance, specifically hip hop, is even legitimate in theater. I was in an African dance group. That's where I was trained. I was trained in an African dance group for 6 years. And I feel like that some of the acceptance about that, ideas started changing later on. But part of the issue there is that we were rocking the crowd. We would basically we'd be like in the theater, like we'd be in the faculty dance concerts and stuff like that. And they started moving us to the end because people would come and watch us and be so rocked by us, they would get up and leave as soon as we performed, and they wouldn't stay for the rest of the show. So they would basically have us perform at the end, have people come in there. But we had to go through those steps to even legitimize what we were doing. So it's like this whole thing that just seems to be baked into this mentality, of American culture, that we're constantly having to try to prove ourselves as legitimate. And I'm trying to figure out still, like, how did everybody else figure that they were legitimate? Some of it is like that conversation that Summer and Troy mentioned about the ballet stuff. I've had to check ballet teachers too, there's a lot of work that we have to do. I'm not exactly sure how to fix it. I have some ideas,
Yeah. That's actually brings me to a point. We have a question for Troy, kind of goes to what's going on. From watching your videos, Troy, you have a nice mixture of students of various race and culture. They work very well together. How do you obtain that?
I'm gonna tell you guys, a lot of work, Actually, I'm gonna show you it.
Hi.
These are two of my students right here, okay? These two have been training with me the last few years. We have gone through the struggles together of learning the hip hop culture. And throughout this time, I have not lied to them. I told them my stories. I told them what's going on in our hip hop community. I told them about the brothers that are on this platform. They know about them. They've heard the stories about them. But the biggest thing, they got their eyes open up when you talk about this competition scene, is when I said a piece on them called Scream. And when we started this process called Scream, the reason I called it Scream was exactly what's going on today. And it was based on images that Black and brown people have to deal with through choreography. And we use choreography because we're going to a competition, okay? And their experience that they had there was a very eye-opening experience for them, because they experienced what we experienced because the judges judged them by, not because they were wearing quote unquote the right hip hop gear, but you have a musical theater judge of this competition stating to them that they're not doing authentic movement.
And he called it jazz. He called it street jazz.
Wait, say that again so everybody can hear.
He called it street jazz. Yeah.
Okay, these are from my own students' mouth.
Jazz.
From my own students' mouth.
I have the video. I can pull it up.
Okay, when this happened, I was standing right behind the judge when he said that, and I stood up in front of everyone. And I wanted to lose my mind right in front of them. I wanted to walk on stage and grab my students and walk off with them. But I couldn't do that because it wasn't about me. But I had to make a statement so that they knew that they weren't wrong. So I stood up in front of everyone in that whole concert and I walked out. I didn't care what the judges said. I walked out. And I walked outside that competition. I walked across the street in a nice quiet place and I yelled so loud, I think I scared the dog. I had to go somewhere to release my frustration. But since then, after that incident we had, we all came together and sat down and we talked about it. And we talked about the experience that they just went through. And I said, you know what, guys, what you just experienced right then and there is a small inkling of what we experience every single day of our lives. And from that day, I promised these kids that I would continue that journey and to be that example. And that's why I do it. I've told these kids, I can easily, they've heard these stories and now they're hearing them from the actual people I've been telling them about, which I'm so happy. And I hope that I got others here at the program that are watching. I have over 100 kids in my hip hop program here. Okay, I'm the guy that's crossed that barrier, who's come into a studio and started a hip hop program, who started with 7 kids, and it ended up being over 120 kids, less than 4 years. And I didn't change my authenticity, but I did have multiple conversations with the studio owner. We had to learn how to have an understanding. I was coming right from he was but it wasn't easy. But it was multiple conversations. And trust me, and I told these guys, I could easily go back to one of the urban studios, whoever had that we built, and go back and not even have to worry about this frustration. But I made the choice to stay here to be the change. Because like Dee said, it's not gonna be, pretty soon it's not gonna be about us. I put my 25 plus years in this life. Pretty soon it's gonna be done. And they know this, the stuff that we teach them, they will not, I said this, they will not learn this in school. They will not get this from their parents. There's not a book they can open up right now. Because this is true American history from a Black male that's not been told. So I'm gonna tell it to you authentically and truly, because when I walk away from this, I want to rest my head and be at peace that I gave them the right knowledge.
That's dope. One thing I could say is that I'm glad they had the experience at least to know how to speak out, because I think at this point, it's not about the brands and the labels of this and that and the other. It's about, if I could just say it in a simple way, it's about good and evil. Like, are you being a good person, or are you basing your, judgment of me off of some just warped, evil type of thinking, whatever it is may be. I don't know how much time we have left, but I just wanted to throw that in there because, it's important to know that this isn't like, it's just like right and wrong. It's blatant at this time. If you're in a room and something is going wrong and someone's either stereotyping you or treating you in a way, in a manner that is degrading to you, it doesn't matter what words they're using. If you know you can feel it and it's real to you, then it needs to be addressed. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how you're gonna address it, but address it. That's the point. Because
Yeah, we have we've been on this for about 3 hours now, y'all.
Dang.
Yeah.
All right, well.
Yeah, I'm proud of those. Let's go around and get some final thoughts from everyone. Before we end this, I promise you guys, this is not going to be the last time. We want to be able to host many of these and give voice and continue conversations. And hopefully we could go, behind doors now and have conversations and have a game plan on, where this conversation, what needs to be fed, what needs to be heard, and really just maybe start coming together with a plan of attack on how do we better our community and take control back of our community, But yeah, let's go around the table. Whoever wants to go first, some final thoughts, please. Ladies first.
All right, I'll go.
Yes.
I wanted to say too, Jared, when you were talking about Earth, Wind, and Fire, I just have to put this in. My uncle is the original keyboardist
Oh,
from
see,
Earth,
there
Wind,
you
and Fire.
right, there you go.
Barry
See?
Gunn. All of the
Look.
members of Earth, Wind, and Fire are from
I'm
Denver.
from right.
So,
Yeah. That's tight. Yo, I didn't know that. See? More history. We all connected, like D was saying. We're connected
We're
way
all
more than we even
connected.
know. Oh.
It's not 6 degrees anymore. It's
Mm-mm,
literally
no.
like 1 or 2. So
right.
yeah.
Right. That's dope.
I think my final stuff is just to say, like, maybe if like you could in terms of like moving forward, I don't know what studio owners are watching this or what teachers or who's watching this right now. But if you're a person, a non-Black or brown person, you have to start standing up. And I mean, just think of it morally. You don't have to say like, how does Summer feel in this situation? How does DeAndre? How does Troy? How does a Black person feel? Just like morally, look at the situation and be like, is this something that I need to be around, first and foremost? Second of all, I think maybe you guys can have a town hall and invite all the dancers, all the hip hop dancers in Colorado, all the dancers, because this is not just a hip hop dancer thing. This is like it's a dance community. So if maybe a town hall can be held and you guys can discuss like, how do we fix this? How do we get more teachers of color in there? How do we make sure that we're keeping hip hop authentic, just like we keep jazz and ballet and tap authentic? How do we, I think I had some points and now they've left my brain right now. But I just want people to understand that, like, again, hip hop is about community and it's about connecting to others and being with others and connecting to music and making sure that you're paying homage to the pioneers that created it. It's great to like go and make your own styles and movement, but make sure that you're teaching the basics. How about that? Make sure you're teaching the basics of, what goes into hip hop. And I don't know, this is a really hard one to like come up with, like to figure out a plan, because I also feel like it's not a Black or brown person to figure this out, because we've been trying to tell people for years and years and years. And I feel like me saying that is gonna kind of be looked at as Summer's angry about it. But yes, I am angry. I will be this Black angry woman right now. We've been telling people for years what this feels like, what it is. I've stepped down from jobs. I've left jobs. I've not taken gigs. I've not done jobs because I felt like it was compromising the culture and myself as a Black woman. And I think we need more people of color to do that. I get that we want to make the money because we're artists and we need that as well. But we also need the non-Black and brown people to not take those jobs too, to stand up and say, no, if you don't allow me to do this, this, and this, then I can't work here. And I think and I get it, because nobody wants to like lose money, lose a paycheck, but we have to stop being passive about stuff and saying, oh, well, they're just kind of this, or this is kind of that. No, it's this or it's not. So if it's not, you have to leave. And I think that's what needs to be done. I think as a community, especially people that are non-colored, need to stand up more and make sure that we're able to have this equity, not equality, but equity. We want the same stuff, but because we're coming from a lower position, we need a little bit of help. And we can't do this as Black and brown people by ourselves because we've tried. And listen to the people of color in the community. That's, I mean, because we have knowledge and we want to move forward, but we can't move forward if you're deaf ears and not listening to our experiences. And check yourself. Ask your Black and brown friends, because I guarantee every single one of them have had a racist story, multiple. They can remember the first time it happened, and they can remember when it happened last week, because it happens probably every day for a lot of people. Ask your Black and brown friends so that you can put it into your life, so you can understand it. You can put that context there and see, like, dang, I know these 5 at my job, and I asked all of them, and do you know that 4 of them have had like crazy encounters with the police? Something I never have to worry about. I guarantee you every Black or brown person that you know has had that issue. And if you can just like apply that to your life and go, damn, I know this person, I know this person, that's what's going to help change. And stop being afraid to ask questions. And Black and brown people, we also have to not be, I'm not going to say not be angry about it, but we have to come to people in a way that they're going to understand it. And I'm not saying, when I say that, that made me think of, don't be the angry person, but like, be truthful about it, be passionate, cry if you have to. I think the problem is we stifle things so we don't scare people, but people need to be scared right now, because we're scared every day. Every day. There's some days I don't want to leave my apartment and take my walk because of what just happened, or damn, that could have been me. There's a lot of people that don't have that same thought process. So I think that like the talk needs to just be had, like, just we have to, again, be authentic and talk about it, and not be afraid to talk about it, and not be afraid to lose the job, and not be afraid to step away from a place because they're not following what we need to follow as a community.
Yeah.
Have those talks. That's my final. That's
Awesome.
my final answer.
Yes, I love it. Good stuff. Hey, Summer, real quick, I forgot to ask you, but where can people reach you?
Right now, I mean, I'm still on Facebook. Just please don't send me any private messages, because I don't have Messenger on my phone, okay? I don't check messages all the time. You can catch me on Facebook and Instagram. My name on Instagram is MZ Summer Dion. I'm posting stuff there all the time, and I'm on Facebook, just Summer Dion, D-I-O-N. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Summer, for joining.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yes, love you so much.
Love you.
We're gonna get you back on here with us again. Everyone, yeah, give it up for Summer.
Word,
Yeah.
Summer. Peace. Peace. Yes.
Yeah, whichever you get on next on a final word, let's go.
I'll just keep mine short and sweet. D, I know you can wrap it up. Mine was just to piggyback maybe on what Summer said. It's just like everyone really try to do their part and support your friends that are really giving it the effort for change. On a grassroots level, I would just say give them any information, any study material, offer to be someone like a learning partner. I'll go through you with this, but I don't think it's a one answer or one-stop shop. This is a continuation of a conversation that's been going on for a very, very long time. So I think that we just need to, continue the conversation, but also begin to just plan things to initiate and help the people that are really trying. If they're saying, hey, I'm having struggle at home, give them some information that might help them and open up to some ideas that they can have. But really the idea right now is to really go after and break down racism, systemic racism in every area that you can. And because it's so deeply rooted in our culture of America, that it's just going to be a process, a day-to-day process. And sometimes it's going to get hard in the long road that we've been treading forever anyway, but we still must do it in order. Again, being a species on the planet, we must do it in order to evolve to a new science and technology and anything. We must all see beyond the barriers of race and color and those kind of things, but not to be colorblind. I kind of don't like that terminology, like I'm colorblind, I don't see color. Well, I'm reminded of it every freaking day. So I think you need to look at it and need to see the beauty and the diversity in color, but not hate it. Like, that's the point. It's not about I don't see it. It's like, no, it's real, it's in front of you, but just learn, you know, some people have to deal with themselves and they have hate in their heart. I'm gonna just say it plainly. You just have hate in your heart, and you need to fix that. One thing I'd recommend on IG before I go is Jules. If you know Soul from Soulbotics Crew, he's been doing a ton of work on IG right now, holding these same dialogues, holding conversations, and calling people out. Not in aggressive, like I'm gonna call you out way, but in a very loving way, saying, hey, let's all do better. So I think at this point we're trying, but we can all keep doing better. Like, you know, on both sides, like whatever we've contributed to as far as stereotypes to our own demise, we can fix that. We can like not be those stereotypes and hold ourselves accountable. But regardless of any stereotype, humanity and being human to one another and seeing each other as human beings and not less than is super important. And I think that has to be the message and the mission, you know, to bring us together. So peace, y'all. Thank you again for, you know, everything.
Thank you, Jared. Yeah, you're the man. Appreciate you. Fix your words.
Word.
Yes. All right, DeAndre.
All right, I'll try to keep mine relatively short. I think just kind of listening to what was being said there, I think the most important thing that everybody needs to do, whether you're a person of color or non-person of color, is just like we need to start really kind of spending some time learning and studying our history, because all the stuff that's going on right now, they're the same discussions that have been had over and over again with a different context. You know, it's hip hop and house and a lot of, you know, street and club forms now that were pioneered by Black and brown people. A generation before, it was jazz. You know, it's been African dance, it's been all kinds of other stuff like that. So not just from the perspective of dance, look at it throughout society, because dance is just one lens. So really kind of learn. It's important for both people of color and, you know, non-people of color to learn those things, because I think specifically for people of color, we can do better to know the history and strategies that our elders and our ancestors used to help them get through this. You know, it's just like it didn't solve all the problems. Honor your anger. It's real, it's authentic, but you have to have conversations where your anger is not the overriding force, because at a certain point, respect and honor your humanity and your own anger, but also kind of respect and honor the humanity of the other person. People can be ignorant, people can be belligerent, but even people that are not ignorant or belligerent or open, they want to hear you. But our instinct sometimes is to recoil from people when they're angry. You know, it's not that we don't want to listen. It's just like somebody muscles up on me, I'm like, yo, hold it, slow down. They can have really legitimate reasons, but I always have to kind of remind them that I can have that conversation. That doesn't mean tone police. That doesn't mean that you have to like police your tone for somebody else's benefit, but be mindful that you're talking to another human being, you know? And like I said, don't diminish your anger. Your anger is authentic. And if it means expressing your anger, you express your anger, but let the anger be a reflection of the consequence, like reflection of the things that got you there, instead of just coming forward with just anger, you know, because we can be angry all day long, but if we don't properly use our anger, we don't get anywhere. Yeah, so it's important to learn those lessons for non-people of color. It's just like learn what was going on before, because consciously or unconsciously, you're still kind of investing in the systems that kept us separate this entire time. You know, and that's kind of a hard pill to swallow. You can be a very, very good person, and I'm not arguing that. But the thing is that we do live in systems, you know, and sometimes things are so automatic that we don't question them. And the things that you're doing hurt other people. You know, it's time for us to change this stuff. So you have to spend some time learning, because we're tired. We can't be your teachers all the time. We want to be your teachers, and we know that it's necessary to be that, like to be your teachers, but you know, I can't deal with the flood of people in my inbox and all kinds of other stuff asking me to educate them on things. I'll have discussions, I'll have conversations and stuff like that, but I also have a life that I have to live, and I'm fighting this struggle too, you know. So there are like a lot of things that we have to kind of figure out about this stuff. Those are really kind of the primary things. Check yourself on what you know and what you don't know. The moment that you start speaking like an authority on something is the time that you should actually question yourself. It's like, do I have that right? You know, maybe I should like double check that sort of stuff. But I mean, that's pretty much it. You know, there can be like foul and hateful and angry and evil people in the world. I'm really not trying to fuck with them. You know, I will make my first line of reaching out in communication with the people who have good hearts but just kind of lack understanding, because I don't really have time to be like angry at everybody else and trying to like bust heads and stuff like that. Most people don't know this about me, and maybe some people do. I have a hot fucking temper, and my entire life is walking that line on that temper. You know, some of you have never seen that. Some of you have probably seen it and wish that you hadn't seen it. But you know, I try to be productive with my emotions, use that as energy to propel me forward. And I just kind of like ask people to do the same thing. And the only way that you really do that is also pairing your emotions. It's like in the things that you're going through with knowledge, because one without the other makes us incomplete human beings. If you can have a whole bunch of information and knowledge and not connect that to the core of humanity, you basically end up asking some of the same stupid ass questions that people want to engage me with, and like devil's advocate, all kinds of crazy stuff like that. But then if you basically have your emotions without this part right here, you become a prisoner of your emotions. Emotions are very reactive. You know, we don't think ourselves into emotions, they happen. So those two things. There's a lot more to be discussed, but I don't want to bogart everybody else's time. And thank you so much for having me on this. You know, Troy, for reaching out to me too.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. And I forgot to ask you too, real quick. How can people reach out to you?
I'm on Facebook, but I might start actually kind of curbing back some of my presence on Facebook, because it's becoming just kind of a trial to deal with social media. You know, I use it as a platform for communicating, but I'm just getting tired of all of the stuff that I'm seeing on there. But I'm still on there for now. So DeAndre Carroll on Facebook. You can hit me, DeAndre at Funkinetic.com. Funkinetic.com is my organization where I try to do dance related stuff in the community. And on Instagram, it's DeAndre Carroll, DeAndreCarroll. So cool.
Yes, thank you all so much. I want to thank Troy, because Troy actually really helped bring some of this together for me. It was a thought in our head and was like, man, we need to get, you know, this panel and get some voices out. And Troy, you know, reached out to you guys. So I want to thank Troy, you know, for helping me along with this, because I couldn't have done it by myself. You know, like this is a group effort over here at BreakEFX. We have spent the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks or whatever, really having these talks with amongst ourselves as gentlemen, and being real with each other and calling each other out on shit. And it's what inspired this, was like, you know, conversations need to happen. And I appreciate everyone's time and their effort, and their words are so valuable. I myself really learned a lot today just listening to everyone. So I'm thankful, I'm grateful. Thank you. I appreciate it. I would like to give Troy a second to talk and give his final thoughts on everything that has happened today. He was involved with every conversation. So Troy, before we head out, I would, you know, let's hear your final thoughts. You had conversations with every panelist.
I'm a stay on path of what I said and keeping everything relative to the beginning. The people on this panel are all representing voices of people of color, and our culture is hip. And D both had touched on this about the anger. So I'm him. There are men out here that look just like me that are angry and upset. He looks just like me and needs these panel of people to keep him calm, and leans on his students to keep him calm. But there's a lot of men and women who look just like me who feel this way. And I'm not changing from it. And I'm gonna hold this space to let people know there are guys that are like me who feel this way. And for the people in Colorado who I put 25 plus years in the scene, teaching and working with, I will say it again. We have receipts. We know who you are. And change is coming. And it's not gonna be pretty. It's gonna be ugly. It's gonna be some long, hard talks. Some people are gonna look at each other sideways. But the change has to come. And if I have to be in the forefront of it, and if I have to put my 25 years of putting work in this career on the line, I will put it on the line. Every single one of them. Just know, there's more than one type of voice that is speaking here. And I'm representing that voice who feels this way. So if you worked with me in this community, no matter on stage, in a studio, or an event process, just know receipts have been pulled and the accountant is going over the numbers. And I hope you guys' numbers match ours, because if not, change is coming. Thank you.
Right on, team. I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone here. We will plan this again. You know, we'll right after this. Let's just keep the planning going. Let's keep the conversations going. And there were some heavy conversations. I'm gonna need a minute to breathe after this. It's just a lot. I'm gonna go back and watch this video again. Go read some of the comments on the YouTube page. I know Tara was in there. Tara, and she had some really good things to say, and you guys really brought some light into her eyes on what's going on over there. So I appreciate her just even chiming in and saying that she's going to make that change, you know? But yeah, let's keep this planning. Thank you guys. For everyone out there watching, we are doing a virtual jam next weekend, next Saturday. We have a B-Boy, B-Girl competition going on. We're just using our platform to keep hip hop going here, y'all.
Word. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it.
We have some prizes for these winners next week that are going to go out to a chosen charity of their choice, to really just kind of give back to the cause and everything going on around us. We gotta move and grab the right people and go right now. And I appreciate you guys. Yeah. But yeah, man, thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Everyone have a good night.
Word.
I love you guys.
Hi, Summer. I never got to say hi to you.
Hi, Jared.
Everybody, go vote for Summer. Go vote for Summer.
Yeah, Summer, give your information.
Go vote for me. No, just I feel ridiculous doing this at this time, but I had to talk myself. I had to talk myself out of that, because we're all still alive. Even though all of this shit is going on, we're all still alive, and we all still have goals and dreams and aspirations and levels of life that we wish to conquer. So in that, I've been trying to just really kind of like showcase my skills and my talents and stuff that I have wanted to do forever and just have been afraid. And I entered myself in a contest, a magazine contest, and I'm in the top 15 right now. So I don't know what's gonna happen. It's my group. So I'm in the top 15 of my group. I'm number 3 right now. I really want to be number 1 because I need to move on to the next round in July. But you can vote for me every day on Facebook.
Yes, go vote.
There's links there. It's been my dream to like be on the cover of a magazine. And, there's a whole challenge going on right now because there's not a lot of color being represented on magazines. So there's like a whole challenge, a Vogue challenge on Twitter. And So yeah, in my group, I think I'm like the only Black girl in my group of 15. So I just want to make it, I want a shot, you know? So you can find the link on my Facebook page, on any of my posts, because I've been just plastering it in front of people's face every day. And it's on my Instagram, it's in the bio. Click on the link and you can vote for free every day using your Facebook login.
Yeah.
For the cover of Maxim. So yeah, there you go.
Whoa.
Yeah, go
Word.
Summer, go Summer.
Summer, go
Yes.
ahead. All right.
Yes, please,
That's
y'all
tight.
support,
dope.
go vote. Please, please,
And
please.
peace to Troy's students who came and supported him in the
Yeah.
studio. That was
Yeah,
dope.
yeah,
Thank
for
you
real.
guys for doing that.
That was dope.
awesome. Yep.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, they're awesome over there. Troy, you're doing great things over there. I love it. Keep doing it. And we will all talk soon. I love you guys.
Wolfpack.
Right on. Thank you, Epi.
Sorry. All right,
Thank you so much. Thank you, Troy.
Troy, keep those receipts tucked
Yeah.
away.
Keep them.
Yeah,
Get
damn.
that review.
Tucked away for a little bit, all right?
I'm
All
gonna
right,
give her a
Summer,
receipt.
hey, Summer, since you asked me, I'll keep them there. But just know, when you're ready, girl, I'm gonna pull that file real quick.
Dang.
Go get the
I'm gonna give
Adam
her a
machine out,
receipt.
little glasses.
All right, y'all. Y'all have
All
a
right,
good
y'all.
night. Love you guys.
Peace. God
Peace.
bless.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Much love to you guys. I love y'all.
Right
Love
on.
y'all.
Love you too.